Red Cels, episode 62. I'm your host, Alex Schmitz, and with me here today is Andrew Gleason.
It's 62 of these already?
I know, right? Trenton Prater.
Hello.
And a new member to the podcast, Sam McCoy.
I have some hot chocolate.
He does indeed. So we are here today to talk about Code Geass R2, a 2008 show from Sunrise, the sequel to Code Geass Lelouch of the Rebellion, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. But before we dive into that, we're going to do a bit of news, animation we've watched since last time, and also introduce you guys to Sam, since he's a new member to the podcast. So, Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like your major, and how you got into anime?
All right, well, I just burned my hand making that hot chocolate on the way over. I pulled the pot of hot water on my microwave, and I touched it. I thought, oh, this is hot. I should let go. I let go, and the water soaked my hand, so that's why it's currently blistering. But I'm a freshman. I got into college despite all that. I swear I'm not that dumb. And I got into anime because I always loved Dragon Ball Z. My older cousin, he would always play the Dragon Ball Z games with me. And then I got really sick one night, and I couldn't go to sleep, and so my friend said, hey, just watch this show. They showed me Death Note, and I watched all of it.
In like one night?
In one night, because I couldn't get any sleep.
Jeez, that's like 40 episodes. That's a lot.
That's a long time. It's like, I don't even know how long.
It was a solid day.
Yeah. Interesting. That's Death Note's a good way to start, though. That's a good gateway anime.
That's what I hear. I have yet to watch Death Note, though, so whatever.
It's good. It's good. And what's your, you're freshman. What's your major?
I'm a media arts and studies major.
Very good. All right. So there hasn't been much news since we last did a podcast. We just did one last week on Legend of Korra and Psycho-Pass 2. But one piece of news I saw was that apparently DreamWorks is in the works on a Ghost in the Shell movie, based off of the classic 80s anime movie. And there's rumors that Scarlett Johansson is going to be cast as Kusanagi, as the major. So I could see that working. Given her recent role as Black Widow, it's somewhat of a similar, like, mercenary, badass female character. Yeah. But we will see. I know she was in, was it Lucy?
Yeah, Lucy.
And that apparently wasn't very good.
And basically, the whole, everything I've heard about Lucy was that it was kind of meh.
Kind of meh.
It was just like, well, it's not bad, but it's not anything special or to really talk about.
So there's some question if she could hold a movie on her own.
Sure she can. She's been in plenty of things.
I guess.
She's been in, like, so many movies, just like Lucy was.
Who can forget her defining role in Home Alone?
Exactly.
She was in Home Alone?
She was the sister.
Huh. I didn't know that. And the other piece of news I saw was that the Animation Kobe Awards were held recently, which is some sort of, anime, like, awards show that they have there. And one of my favorite films, the Madoka Rebellion film, came away with the Anime Work Award. That one, as well as Love Live, which is like an idol show, I believe. So that was kind of cool. I'm glad to see that movie getting some.
You would shower with all the awards if you could.
I would indeed. Hey, it was nominated. It was amongst those ones that were considered for an Oscar.
Well, it didn't get nominated for the Oscar.
It did not get nominated.
Reasons, even though there was like nothing good that came out animated movies that came out last year, except for like Frozen.
The Wind Rises and Frozen.
Yeah, that's it.
Begged to differ.
I mean, those are like.
And Ernest's Lustline is supposed to be good. I didn't see it.
It could have got the nomination. I mean,
it did get. It got nominated. They just didn't win. Wind Rises, Ernest Celestine. Frozen and the Croods, I think.
Yeah,
I think that was it.
It deserved it over the Croods.
Well, absolutely. But it's obscure even by the Wind Rises is way more mainstream as far as American audiences go than Madoka Rebellion.
So,
because you have to imagine that movie reviewers saw that without seeing the TV show first, and if you do that, you'd just be confused.
That would be confusing.
I watched the new Dragon Ball Z movie in theaters, so that was fun.
Oh, nice. I saw the Japanese version when it came out online. I didn't get the chance to see it in theaters. I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't quite as much fighting as I might have liked.
Chris Sabat singing the bingo song was a highlight of my life right there.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the defining moments of that movie, a memorable moment, for better or for worse. So now we'll talk a bit about animation we've watched since last time, just any animation you've been watching recently. As for myself, I've been keeping up with some of the, the fall season of anime. Shirobako had a new episode today. It's an anime that's about a anime studio, so it's like kind of like a meta thing about the production process of anime, and I'm someone who's kind of interested in that, being a film major. So it's really a fascinating show and gets into like how rushed these production schedules are and like the chaos that goes on there. Was rewatching Steins Gate with some friends yesterday. Love that show. I finished Panty and Stocking recently. directed by Hiroyuki Imaishi, has his style all over it. Quite enjoyed it. So that's what I've been watching recently. Andrew, how about you?
I don't know. I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch anime outside of Code Geass.
Yes.
That took forever.
Because you are the newbie here to Code Geass.
And I watched that whole season in 2 weeks, so there was not like a whole lot of free time to do anything else. But I did watch. I have been keeping up with Fate Stay Night.
That's right.
Which is making me happy.
Yep. It's definitely superior to the Dean version by far.
You know, every time I look on Hulu, I end up seeing that first, and I'm like, I don't want to watch that, right? I just do not want to watch that. I hear that's not very good. So it kind of.
I mean, from what I've heard about it, it's not bad, but it's much more mixed. Whereas this version is obviously way superior visually, and apparently they fixed some of the writing.
So pretty, and so awesome. And then Berserker showed up, and I'm like, oh yes, I need to watch that fight. But and then Korra, obviously.
Oh yeah, you saw the 3rd episode.
I have seen the 3rd episode of Korra.
Yeah, it was more of an intermediary episode, kind of building things up. Although Toph interacting, I guess, was like the main
that was
plot.
like an intermediary episode. Kuvira just like straight up, just like declared that she's gonna be Hitler. So
I know, but it's sort of like we knew that was going to happen eventually. So this was sort of
warning.
Just sort of getting us
super obvious,
getting us to that point. You know, like it's like, okay, where does the show go from here? You know, that's what's interesting.
Also, totally Hitler. They mentioned camps. Camps were mentioned.
She is pretty much Hitler.
Yeah.
All right, Trenton, how about yourself?
Not much. Been keeping up with the 2nd season of Log Horizon.
Nice.
Turning out to be pretty good so far. It's too early to judge, but yeah.
Yeah, I like how they went into the concepts of the raid recently, like how that works in this world.
Raid, you say?
Not that kind of raid, like a World of Warcraft raid.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh, that sounds fun too, actually. So, never mind. I'm back in.
Yeah, some people are put off by there's a new production team working on Log Horizon, a new studio. So some people are a little put off by it's slightly different design, but I can't really tell a difference. So
I can definitely, you can see the difference in the character design. Funny enough, that's actually Studio Dean, the people who made the original Fate Stay Night, are the ones doing the 2nd season of Log Horizon. The thing about it is that the 1st season of Log Horizon didn't look very good either, to be perfectly honest. Like, the main reason you watch that show is for the characters and the writing, not for the animation or the fight scenes.
right.
So I think
Dean Nyanta's fight scenes were pretty good.
They were
the few times he got to fight.
Right, but like it's sparing, you know, in that show. It's mostly a lot of talking, which is why I like the show. You know, that's what it's really good at.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the Dean taking over has been like a big change one way or the other. It's not better, it's not worse. It's just kind of more of the same. All right, and then what have you been watching?
I have also been keeping up with the new season of Log Horizon, and I'm curious about where they're going with this. They're bringing back some old characters that didn't get a lot of attention in the last season, like that guy who walked out of the round table. And also there's Tetra, the new diva character.
I thought I was going to be annoyed with her, but she's actually pretty funny.
I like how she plays off of Naoto because he always goes on about how he's a closet. No, he's an out in the open pervert for everyone. And then as soon as any woman actually shows any attention to him, he's just like, "What's going on? I need to hide."
Of course, that's how it always works in anime. Do hope Katsuki gets to do something soon. She's sort of like chilling out in Akihabara right now.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else or just Log Horizon?
I just finished rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender so that I can start watching Korra.
Oh, you've never seen Korra?
I have not seen Korra.
I see. I'm a big fan of both shows. And Legend of Korra, characters generally aren't quite as good, but it's a lot more plot focused than Avatar was, whereas, you know, Avatar kind of did a lot of traveling around. You know, Korra keeps the plot moving, and it's a lot darker. So in certain respects, it's better. In certain ways, it's worse.
Is that why it was taken off the air? Because I know it's an online-only release now.
It didn't have to do with the content. It was just Nickelodeon being stupid, and it wasn't getting very good ratings because they marketed it extremely poorly.
Well, that's because they decided to release the 3rd season. They decided to announce that the 3rd season was going to premiere 2 weeks from when it was going to premiere.
Actually, it was 1 week.
Well, let's face
1
it.
week.
All the main Cartoon Network shows and Nickelodeon shows, they're all being terrible. They're making terrible ideas on how they're releasing their shows.
It's sad.
It is
and I miss
sad.
Young Justice still. I still miss you.
Still wants
You were
his
my
Young
favorites.
Justice. All right, so now we'll dive into the main topic for this week, which, as I mentioned before, is Code Geass R2. Directed and written by the same guys who wrote the first season of the show. And I thought we might as well sort of split our discussion of the show into arcs, because, like I think the first 4 episodes, kind of with the intro into the changes, to where like he rescues the Black Knights, like that kind of makes an arc, So this season divides up into arcs pretty well. And I believe all of us here, except for Andrew, were fans of the show from like years ago, whereas Andrew, you just finished watching the show yesterday.
I did just finish watching the show like yesterday.
And I showed you like the last 6 episodes.
Yeah, I watched, in fact, if we're being entirely honest, the 2 episodes before that. So I watched like the last 8 episodes yesterday. So
so you really just got it all
I
at once.
think I watched R2 in the summer. That's when I finished it.
Okay.
Just
relatively
so you're-
fresh in my
good. So I'm not the only one
That
who's
is
just
good.
like completely fresh at this.
Yeah, and there will be spoilers for R2, obviously. So, that's what we do with these podcasts.
It's really hard to talk about the show without them.
It really is.
Well, like things happened, and I can't tell you what happened, but things definitely happened, and
I
it was
command
crazy.
you to not exist.
Something like that.
Exactly. And sort of, as I said on the last podcast, my sort of opinion of R2 is that it takes everything that was Code Geass Season 1, and makes it like bigger, both the good things and the bad things, in that like the leaps in logic and some of the fan service and some of the silliness in the show is even more extreme
The
than
fan
before.
service definitely got a lot worse.
But the
Poor
epic
Colin.
but
feel so bad.
But the epicness and like the robot fights and the grandness of his strategies and all of that is also pushed to the next level.
This is true.
So it's an interesting mix of things. I
The
think, with
robots
that.
start flying.
Well, yeah, they do.
Not
Well,
only-
they had one flying robot
Yeah,
in season 1.
In season 1, it was a big deal when the Lancelot started flying, and then the Gurren started flying. They're like, oh.
And then by the end,
And
it's like-
by the end, I even made that comment when we were watching the last episode. I'm like, remember when it was a big deal that they got one of these robots flying? When they just saw the fleet of them flying at each
bro,
other?
do you even fly?
No kidding. Yeah. So
Like Gurren Lagann, though. Like, he just
Little
finally
bit.
got flying. Like, nope, I got
Gurren
all of these
Lagann.
up here.
But talking about the first episode, because like I know you said that after you watched the last episode of the first season, you
angry.
immediately
So
went to
angry.
R2, and sounds like it starts as a very confusing
So
episode.
angry, and
Oh
yes,
my
you're right.
God.
The first half of the first episode made me even angrier.
Because it just throws you in here like, oh, Valletta's a school teacher.
Wasn't his teacher
Luce-
trying to kill
It
him?
was like it was. It cuts to black when they shoot each other, and you're like, wait, what happened? Did they die? Did one of them die? What happened?
Next season.
Next season, he's back at school, palling around with this dude who's apparently his brother for some reason, and that girl over there was trying to kill them, but he's now their gym teacher. And what is going on?
Exactly.
It
But
was so disorienting
It
the first
was.
time I watched it.
but that's the point of it, and it does explain itself in the second half.
It does, which I was happy with, because if it made me wait any longer, I would have been very angry all the time.
It's just pure angry.
So angry.
And I do like how like it obviously it parallels the first episode of the first season in a lot of ways, with how he gets confronted by a bunch of dudes, C2 gets shot,
C2 gets shot.
he
I
gets
was
his
about to
power
say.
again.
He gets his Geass again.
Yep.
That we got to see the rebirth of Zero, and that was one of the greatest moments of that first episode. Is when he's standing there in the burning building, and he gets to pull off
Yeah.
that initial "everyone dies."
I wonder
again.
where Britannia gets these purple flamethrowers from.
Oh.
Those look cool. they
a good
do look cool. I'm not denying that.
Here's a good look.
Yeah, and it's also kind of, telling to see like that there's still this group. It's 1 year later, but there's still a small group of the Black Knights, including Colin. That are aware of what's going on, trying to
Colin
save
and
him.
C2.
Right, trying to get him his memories back. And in episode 2, we see that Suzaku totally turned him into the Emperor.
God, Suzaku went super villain.
Yeah. Corey, you probably didn't listen to the last podcast. Suzaku was Andrew's favorite character in
What?
the first
Oh,
season.
It was my favorite in the
You
first
love
season.
the Spinzaku memes.
I did
and
love the
everything?
Spinzaku and his awesome robot and how nice he was, and he's just such a great and upstanding guy. And I shipped him and Yuffie, and then everything just fell.
and then
They
all
shipped
fell
him and
apart.
Yuffie.
and then Lelouch killed Yuffie, and he became a cold, heartless man.
And then Suzaku just went super villain.
Except not really, because he's still Suzaku, at least throughout most of R2.
The
Near the
thing-
end, he really throws away his principles.
The thing about Yuffie, though, is that one thing that annoyed me through the entirety of Code Geass is that Lelouch, there are moments when he gets to talk to Suzaku about Yuffie, and he never once says it was an accident. He always
He really does. He really just accepts the blame, and I'm like, dude.
But because
that was
that's
my
what he
bad.
does. He takes the evil on himself,
Yeah, I know, but like you could have just been like, "Hey, it was an accident. I'm sorry." Or he never actually apologizes either. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like he just like accepts
Well,
responsibility. But
I would assume that maybe after they started like actually working together near the end, he
I mean,
maybe
but
explained the
there's no, like-
situation.
there's no like scene of like him saying, "I'm sorry that I murdered everybody, the person you love most in this world," and then also had her scar her entire name. Also, that I shot her in the face.
True, although near
All
the
of those things were
near the end of the show, he does say, like, I'm about to spill a sea of blood that's going to wipe away people's memories of, Yuffie's massacre forever. Like, I'm going to kill so many people that they won't even think about Yuffie.
That's just so much better.
Exactly.
That is a good plan.
Our
I love
hero,
Lelouch.
everybody.
I love Lelouch's grand sweeping gestures and the way he talks and the way he's animated and everything about him, but he
So
is
dramatic.
completely insane.
Well, he's not completely insane.
He's
I mean,
the show's
mostly-
antagonist.
He's mostly insane.
He is,
No.
no, he's the protagonist, but he's a villain protagonist.
No, we talked
I would
about
argue
this.
that point.
Well, the antagonist, your protagonist is the person you follow, whether they're good or evil. They're the person you follow. The antagonist is the person who stands in the way of the protagonist getting what they want. The antagonist does not necessarily have to be evil. For example, in Death Note, Light is the protagonist and L is the antagonist, even though Light is clearly the villain and L is clearly the hero.
Well, that one actually, I'll argue with you again. I think that in Death Note there was actually this strange dichotomy where a lot of people, not just me, who are very split down the middle when it comes to who was the real protagonist in that show, who had the right of way.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think Light was clearly evil, although L is not a hero really either.
I think it's fun that we're talking about Death Note right now, though,
Well,
because
They're so comparable
They,
anyway.
they are comparable.
when it comes to shows about a megalomaniacal, super smart young boy who gets the power to control and kill people, you really get Code Geass and Death Note, and which one you think is better is really up to you.
Also my thing, but whatever. Also
Yeah.
my thing.
And it was pretty cool in that second episode where Lelouch totally collapses the building on top of the incompetent viceroy. You know,
yeah.
who had
Yeah,
just
screw
been
him.
like gloating throughout the whole episode. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
screw him
no,
anyway.
you're incompetent. Time to die. And then pretty early on, they hide in the consulate of the Chinese Federation. You know.
You see, and then they get in that big war.
With the
them.
pedophilic sword guy.
Hey, they liked each other, so whatever.
Yeah,
I was like, why aren't you just married already? Just get over it. He's gonna die anyway, apparently someday in the future.
Someday his raw talent will just burn through his body.
life is
Seriously.
not as long as it
All right.
should be.
I think we're jumping ahead a little bit. I guess we should talk about Rolo first because they kind of do him.
Yeah. Well.
All right.
The Rolo McFlurry.
Yeah, well, pretty early on, they show like, oh, we're gonna bring out all these members of the Black Knights and we're gonna kill him like a few days if you don't come rescue him, and he's got to deal with that as well as Rolo and like the OSI who's there monitoring his events because they do a good job. I know this frustrates you, Andrew. They do a good job of justifying the reason why Lelouch has to stay at the school because if the Emperor finds out that he's actually Zero again, he's going to use Nunnally as like a bargaining chip.
Look, and I was fine with it in the second season. It was the first season that it really got on my nerves.
I see.
They kept cutting away from the awesome fight scenes to go, oh, wonder what the student council are up to at Ashford Academy. I'm like, I cannot even begin to care even a little bit less.
Can't care even
Not
slightly.
What was it from Sword Art Online Bridge? It's the even a supercomputer computing for 1,000 million years could not even begin to comprehend the amounts that I do not care.
Fair enough. But talking a bit about Rolo, I'm going to be honest. I'm not a big fan of him. Like, they make him more sympathetic, later on in the show. But when
I don't care. Even
Yeah.
when they tried to make him more sympathetic, I was like, you're just so crazy that I can't even begin to
I'm a
care
fan of his
about you.
Geass.
That's cool.
Geass is cool, and how Lelouch exploits it, where he's like got it on the video camera thing. He's like, "Oh, you don't stop time; you just stop my perception of time."
Yes.
That's a cool way of going at it because stopping time itself is like kind of impossible.
Yeah.
Also, this still just further shows how evil Lelouch got.
Well, of course. I mean, he's always been evil.
Well, no, he's like, but he's like, Rolo, I wanted you to be my little brother because I love you. Cuts to Lelouch thinking, God, I'm going to use you and then just get you dead as soon as I can.
pretty much.
Like, wow, Lelouch, that was a little dark there.
Well,
Maybe, like, you ever think about I don't know, any amount of morals.
It's those great scenes where it cuts away and you see the upper half of his body and it's just all this green tinted background. You hear his thoughts.
Yeah.
And as the words coming out of his mouth are, "Hey, little bro, I'll take care of you forever." And in his mind, you just hear, "I'll kill you for what you did to Nunnally."
Yeah.
Oh my god, he kills so many people.
Well,
for her.
not so much that, but what he did to Shirley. That's where he became pretty irredeemable for me.
True.
That wasn't why he became irredeemable, but whatever.
Oh.
Ben, do you have anything about Rolo?
It's a delicious candy.
That's true. That part's true. I agree with that one.
Yeah. Barely Trent has not seen Code Geass R2 in a while.
Well,
so.
yeah, I remember him not so fondly. I just kind of, and there were so many times that, or at least I remember one time when he actually got in the way of Lelouch's plan at some point, and I just wanted him to die so much. Or I mean, Lelouch set him up so many times to actually get rid of him, and he just would not die.
Yeah, he was
and
that-
I feel like the creators did that just to troll the audience in a way, because I bet they knew that they wouldn't like Rolo, and they just like set him up a bunch of times, kind of
They gave
like
him
to get
such-
rid of him. But nope.
They gave
In
him
fact,
such a juicy
Lelouch
death
even
scene.
says, Lelouch even says, like, I keep trying to kill you, but I just keep missing my chance.
That was an
I don't
amazing
get it.
scene. That was
Yeah.
a great moment of audience sympathy for the show.
Yes.
Yeah, he
Why
finally,
aren't you dead?
because it's basically what he's been thinking in his head this whole time. He just finally gets out there and says it because he's a little mentally unhinged at that point.
He's a little mentally unhinged all the time.
Well,
He's
that's
walking
true.
around in the Zero suit without the hat on. He's just
Yeah, but in episode 4 is where he duels a Lord Guilford, to free the hostages, the other Black Knights, people who are about to be executed, and he does his favorite plan of collapsing the ground underneath his
He
enemies.
just so loves to do that.
Which he apparently is a really big fan of, and I loved how he borrowed a shield as his weapon and then surfed on it,
Yeah.
in order to win.
I don't know why people just they need to stop. I remember because they make that comment when they rebuild Tokyo. They're like, yeah, we've done it so that you cannot do that again because it was annoying when he did that.
guess what?
Still did it.
And
Zero
Yeah.
powers activate.
then the architect just face palms and he says, I'm done.
Little
I'm
did
out.
you know, he used his Geass on the building construction workers.
To make it structurally out so I can do it again. Lol.
LOL. They don't even know. And then moving on from that, we get to this, I think actually at the end of episode 4, it kind of ends on this cliffhanger where Suzaku is he's back at the school, and it's oh, because you're the Knight of Seven now, because
Yeah.
you totally betrayed me to the Emperor.
You totally betrayed me to the Emperor
My
and
best
became a Knight
friend.
of the Round, and now you're going to high school again for some reason. Shut up, we're back to main character high school.
It's because he wants to, figure out if Lelouch is Zero or
But
not.
they're back to main character high school again, and I'm like, God, why are you still at main character high school?
Also, I did appreciate the fact that they rescued all those Black Knights who were going to be killed and stuff, but they weren't just totally all right, Zero, let's be buddy. They're no, you totally ran away
I don't
at
really-
the end of the last season.
I actually really don't think so. They talk about it for 5 minutes, but
If I
they
can go
just
on a quick
eventually just
tangent about Suzaki right there being a Knight of the Round, though.
yeah.
When he first becomes a Knight of the Round, I like how everyone's very shocked that oh my god, he's an 11. But nearing the end of the series, they keep referencing it like it's still a big shock. He's been a Knight of the Round for months by the end of the series, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Are they really surprised at it by that point? Or they just
Well,
refer to
'cause
him by his
well,
title.
Well, he was going for Knight of One by that point. So.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think it might be in that episode where he talks about the fact that my goal is to become the Knight of One because the Knight of the One can choose his own providence, to call his own or whatever. And he's I'm going to choose Japan, and free it from Britannia, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I like that because it made his whole, I'm going to change things from within plan, actually something feasible. I can do this if I could just become the Knight of One,
Speaking of that Knight of One, by that point, everyone has Geass.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, we learn midway through the show that there's a whole order that's just making a bunch of children with Geass, so it's not such a rare thing, really.
That was never really well explained.
No.
It never really. It was just kind of a thing, and then they blew that place up, and never mind, for himself. High fives all around.
And then they went back to the more interesting stuff.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think the Geass order was interesting because that's where after that we confronted that he confronted the Emperor for the first time. That was interesting. We learned about C2's past and how she wants to
V2.
die and blah blah blah. And V2,
And V2, who apparently died, and
Yeah.
I was confused because I'm I was under the impression that you two were immortal, but
well,
whatever.
that's because Charles took his code.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it works with these things. It's called Code Geass, after all.
V2
Oh.
had the one recurring line that was the most annoying, grating thing to me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Every time V2 says, "Oh yeah,"
Oh yeah, I do remember him saying that. Because it's so weird because he's like a little kid, but then Charles calls him Big Brother
Yeah,
all
He
the
is
time.
Big Brother. Like, he's just an immortal being that's...
It's true. I mean, it makes sense, but it's still
I
kind
was
of...
confused that was a dude.
he
I was
still
like, oh.
behaves like a little kid. So I just imagine him as this older man who's just running around acting like a little
He
kid.
still gives me the creeps. I don't know what his deal was.
Also,
Yeah.
like I said, apparently a dude, which surprised me. I was like, oh, you're a dude. Oh.
just got long hair.
What did he do?
It's also around that time where Suzaku kind of tries to corner Lelouch by giving him the phone with Nunnally on
Oh,
it.
yeah. That part was cool. And then Rollo, Deus Ex Rollo.
But it wasn't Deus Ex Machina. He was there watching him and used his power.
It's just Rollo.
I remember the first time that you see Rollo's power, though, when he rolls up to the embassy and then he just says, "Hey, I'm looking for my brother," and his eye does the Geass thing. That was a genuine surprise for me.
Oh, yeah. With Rollo, just, yeah. No, that part was cool. But I'm just saying is that Rollo always seemed to be present when Lelouch needed him to use his Geass power. Like, otherwise, Lelouch was like, well, I'm screwed otherwise.
Well, I mean,
Checkmate.
it's creepy to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if Rollo kind of stalked Lelouch around the school
Oh, he
because
totally
he was totally kind of like obsessed with
That
him.
was
was
his job,
totally,
too.
completely obsessed with him.
That's true. You know, and it is around there also where Lelouch like totally takes over the OSI and like blackmails Valletta into working with him as well.
You know, is it worth noting that, is it weird that, like, is Rollo as obsessed with Lelouch as Lelouch is kind of almost as obsessed with Nunnally?
I guess, but I don't know. Rollo is, I think, maybe even more codependent on him
Well,
than
he is
on
because
Nunnally.
Rollo is like a
Be- because-
broken individual.
Because
so-
Lelouch ends up like finding a reason to fight beyond Nunnally. Like, that's part of his character growth.
I mean, finally, but that's like he has to go through a character arc to get that. So
well, yeah.
before that, he was pretty much just as obsessed with Nunnally as Rollo is with Lelouch, except Lelouch just was like, I'm gonna conquer the world for her
I'm gonna make the world a better place for my sister by killing lots of people.
by killing an entire empire of people.
Exactly. And he in fact he even goes to like, I'm gonna go save Nunnally because we're gonna go up on this ship and get rid of her. You know, save her from Britannia. But then she's kind of like, yeah, no, I actually volunteered for this position. I'm not just a scapegoat, and I want to form the special zone of Japan like Yuffie wanted to do. You know, and then that makes him a lot more conflicted about this whole thing, and he kind of goes into a depression after that.
God, he just goes through that cycle so much. Just, I'm happy. I'm gonna go murder things. Oh, no, I'm sad now. I'm gonna be really sad for a
Well,
long
but
time.
I personally, I like that arc of the show because it's important to show that he is still like a human being, you know, and that he isn't just like a sociopath. Like, he does struggle with his decisions. You know, he has to overcome the fact that he might have to fight against Nunnally, you know. Although
Could you
one,
imagine him fighting against Nunnally? Because every time he goes, could you imagine him fighting against Nunnally? Because every time he goes into this big battle mode, he's always fighting against someone else intellectually, and it's always in these big battle carriers that they seem to have. They seem to have a bunch of sand crawlers. They're all equipped with 3D projection gear, so they can have a RTS battle.
Well, yeah, that's what you want out of your giant robot shows.
of
Yes.
course, strategy.
Unless it's that first big robot battle where Lelouch is up in a building with a walkie-talkie.
Yeah, but he was also doing pretty okay then too.
Yeah, I mean it starts from humble means, and by the end he's fighting the world. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
There is an interesting dynamic though, talking about the dynamic between Lelouch and Suzaku, in that he loses and Nunnally is brought to Area 11. But then he's like, well, but she's with Suzaku, and there's no safer place for her than to be by Suzaku's side. Like, I know I can trust him. So there's sort of this weird thing where he's like, he's my mortal enemy, but I also know, that I can put my faith in him, and he kind of, still thinks of him as like his best friend.
That's because Suzaku's not evil, except he's totally evil by that point. But he doesn't know how evil, so
He's not evil at
He
that
is
point. It's
so
later
too
that he
evil.
becomes kind of evil.
he's so too evil.
You know what
by
I
that
thought was
point.
going to happen
Yeah.
as soon as Suzaku got into the Knights of the Round? I really thought the Knights of the Round were going to become like the boss battles of the show.
Nope.
I thought he was going to go against them one at a time and take them out, but eventually they ended up being really
Well,
disappointing.
and that would make more sense if Code Geass was more of like a shonen show, but it really never was
I
quite
know.
that.
But like, there was wasted potential in some of them. That one man who they called him the Vampire Britannia,
Oh yeah.
he
Right.
was in about 2 fights with the Gurren, and he just died. So.
Yeah.
He just got
Well, but he was
stomped.
he
by
was
the
there to help show just how strong Colin had become with the upgraded Gurren and all
Very
that.
true.
He was kind of fodder. At least he did better than like the 4 Knights of the Round that Suzaku just took out while he was fighting Lord Waldstein.
Oh yeah, he just
Near the
like,
end of the show.
wrecked them.
They didn't even get like a chance to fight.
It's the Lancelot.
Indeed. Well, as I said, like he goes into this depression. There's kind of a nice scene I like where he's gonna take the refrain and Colin like throws it out of his hand. And he's like, "Oh, well, comfort me then. There are certain things like a woman can do to comfort a man in these situations, isn't it?" He's being really like creepy and messed up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then she gets all mad, and I'm like, well, A, I thought you wanted this, but I get that he's like depressed, and B, like, God, Joe, just decide on a ship already.
Do you want
Pick one.
C2 and Lelouch? Do you want Colin and Lelouch?
Exactly.
Didn't Colin want this to happen?
Exactly.
Albeit Lelouch was being very, very creepy right there, but
he was, but
But Colin had talked to him earlier in the show about how like I don't care for you. I care for Zero. Zero's the
that's
man.
just not true. They had so much sexual tension.
Well, and-
because she also did that conversation
the
while she was
mask
like on top of him.
Well, that's true. Well, I think that was in the Chinese Federation because there was definitely a time where they were having a conversation and then she fell on top
Yeah.
of him in classic anime way.
And I'm like, you see, and then C2's over there, and then
it's
and
not
every
like
time,
I like you, Baka.
Bug.
But every time that like C2 and Lelouch are like even vaguely implied to be doing something, she gets all flustered, and I'm like, just Joe, pick a side.
Well, it really, I mean, there's
Doesn't.
romance subplots in the show, but it's really not about that in
And
the
it
end.
also
Oh wow,
doesn't
it completely slipped my mind until right now. But C2 loses her memory for that little bit of time there, doesn't she? And that's
Yeah.
when it all becomes innuendos.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a very interesting relationship Lelouch and C2 have, like during that time when she has no memory, and she reverts back to how she was before she got her Geass power. I keep bumping the mics.
I kind of like that because at that point, Lelouch, he's sort of thinking to himself, what good is she to me now? How can I use her as a pawn in this battle of mine? And yet, even though there really is no strategic reason to keep her around, he keeps her around simply because she is his friend at that point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he truly cares for her.
Yeah, and you
Yes.
see kind of a softer side of him as he's kind of coaching her through these basic things because
Because-
she basically has the mind of a child.
This is
well,
Pizza
she-
Hut.
yeah.
We are getting all of our funding from them.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
love pizza, don't you? Don't you?
Yeah, there was even a point where he actually hurt her, and once he realized what he had done, he calmed down and comforted her. And
Yeah, I think there was a quote there about how like it's easy to cure the hurt on the outside, but hurt on the inside, like in the heart, that's harder to heal or
See,
something
yeah.
like that.
It was, but I was also annoyed with that because I really like C2's character, and then to see her become this like feeble slave girl,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, but no, I liked it when you were like a cold sociopath.
But it gave a
I
consequence.
like that back.
It gave a consequence to the actions of the Emperor, and it only lasted for like 4 or 5
It did.
episodes
It did,
in the
but-
big scheme of things.
C2's personality is sort of like a human cat. She walks around the room and she'll stare at you coldly and not give any inflection to her voice, but she walks off into the corner and snuggles with a giant pillow.
Yeah.
She's
Well, that's what makes her. I think that's part of what makes her interesting. Is she's so mysterious for so much of the show and so unpredictable. Because she's on Lelouch's side, but she's kind of on her own side. And you never really know what to expect from her. But there is an important part there in that episode where he's all depressed, where he goes back to the school and his friends are shooting off fireworks because they didn't go on the field trip. They stayed behind, to be with him. And he has this nice quote about like how if happiness could have a form, it would look like glass. He said that even though you don't usually notice it, it's definitely there. You merely have to change your point of view slightly, and then that glass will sparkle when it reflects the light. I doubt that anything else could argue its own existence more eloquently. That's like a quote that he says there. And I just really kind of like that concept. And he kind of promises that he's going to like shoot fireworks with them someday, before he goes off and saves the Black Knights from, being captured by Suzaku. So I do like it when we see that he is really close with the people from the student council and that grounds him in his humanity, and he brings it up again near the end of the show. I think he calls Rivel and says, "Tell the Prez I'm not going to be able to fire off fireworks like I promised to." It's kind of definitely kind of a melancholy thing. And then he comes up with this brilliant plan because not only he's doing the Special Zone of Japan thing, he's like, I'm going to join it. And everyone's kind of like, what? Like, what's going to go on? It's going to be just like Yuffie, blah, blah, blah. And he brings these million people here and organizes this whole thing like, you're going to let me go free, what's the word I want to use?
exile.
Exile me. But then all of a sudden the smoke goes out, and then all 1,000,000 people are wearing Zero costumes.
Yeah, it was just like in V for Vendetta.
They multiplied by 0.
This is what happens when you multiply by 0.
And then the rest of us sighed.
Or
over
really,
here.
it's divide by 0.
I
That
know.
like breaks
Because it all
calculators.
works out.
It did. Well, I do
That
sort
joke
of.
went nowhere. I'm sorry.
A part of me does sort of wonder, like, how much did it cost to make like 1,000,000 of those costumes?
Do they all
Sort of,
fold
yeah.
up? Did the helmet all fold up? Like they
Yeah, I
used to?
mean, God, you cannot be.
Or are they
cheap
all made of
those.
cheap plastic?
Well, like I said, it was like in V for Vendetta when he mails all the masks to everybody, and they put the mask on, and they all march in the street.
Who produced all of these masks?
I know, right?
Well, he probably Geass somebody to
Is
do
it like in Batman where you had to order 1,000 of the masks so no one would be suspicious?
Yeah,
It also
kind of.
reminds me of that scene. I don't know what movie it's from, but it's like, I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. And
Yeah.
I am Zorro. No, I am Zorro.
Right. And I like it though because like the woman who's like Nunnally's assistant, who's really like running the show behind the scenes, is totally like ready to kill all these people. Like, no, this is ridiculous. Like, we can't let this happen. And Suzaku's the one who's like, no, we're not going to shoot these people. We're not going to do another massacre.
We're seriously, we need to stop having massacres when we try to do this. It's really bad.
And
Yeah.
then the entire population of Japan goes from living on an island to living on an artificial island
Made of snow.
made
or-
of snow
or
and
ice.
battle carriers.
Yeah, a giant glacier, basically.
For some reason.
But I like that because, like, basically Lelouch's whole plan centered on the idea that he knew Suzaku was in charge and that Suzaku wouldn't be the type, to shoot all those people.
Another Batman Gambit by
true.
Lelouch for Suzaku.
There's also a kind of a subtle scene I really love in that episode, I believe, where Suzaku is talking to Nunnally at like this grave for all the people who died in the massacre, Yuffie's massacre, and Suzaku, or maybe it's Nunnally, one of them sets down like a lantern that has Yuffie's name written into it, and he sees that there's another one that says Yuffie there, and you see like a shot of Lelouch like walking away from that place. He says, "I've done everything I need to do here. There's nothing tying me to Japan now."
For as much of a sociopath as he seems to be, and for as much as he uses and sacrifices people, he really does understand how the human mind works, and he understands how these certain people will react.
Exactly.
Well, when you put it like that, you make him sound even more sociopathic.
True.
It's the opposite. It's the no matter how sociopathic he seems, there do seem to be people and like he cares about, and he does do a lot to inspire them. Like he did tell them in the first season that all their lives are worth it, and that he doesn't want to sacrifice anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like actually in the first episode of R2, you remember one of I think it's one of Toto's like 4 samurai people like sacrifices himself to save him, and he's like saying, restore Japan, I know you can do it, and he's actually like, your sacrifice won't be in vain, like he genuinely does care about like some of the people under his command and stuff. And that's why I like him, because he's a more complex character. He's not just totally a villain. He has good and bad to him.
Although he does have a lot more bad than good.
And in a certain point of view.
Oh,
quote
from
some
a
Star
certain
Wars.
point of view.
That's right.
Yeah, way to go, Obi-Wan.
So episodes 9 through 11 are basically episodes in the Chinese Federation where he ends up fighting with Shin-Kei and
Who will just never die. He was clearly an immortal.
I know. I like Shin-Kei quite a bit, actually,
I like
because they
Shin-Kei
talked
too.
about how he's got like the piling skills of like Colin Suzaku, but the brains of Lelouch kind of all mixed into one.
Which
And
you
yet
would
he's still dying.
Which you would think would make him the most OP character in the show, and then after this arc, he doesn't do a whole lot to the plot, but except for occasionally show up in battles and kill some people.
He just
Yeah.
kind of becomes subservient to Lelouch like the rest of the people.
Yeah, but he's the general commander of the army, and he does get into a lot of fights,
He
so.
does. But like I said, and then they're like, I need to hold on just a little bit more, coughing up blood. Still alive in the last episode, aren't you? Yeah.
I do wonder, like, after the very end, when they skip after the Zero Requiem, if he's still alive at that point or not, because I don't know if we see any shots of him or not.
I think he was there. I think he was on like the execution block.
Before we get to the end,
Zero.
though, I feel like we have to get to I guess you call it the first ending of the second series, which is when they enter the other world. They enter the world of the Geass.
We should probably hold off We should probably at least talk about the Chinese.
Yeah,
a
let's
little
back
bit.
up. We're getting
Yeah,
all over. the
we're
place.
getting off track here.
No,
Okay.
I was just complaining about how they kept making his out to be like, I'm gonna die soon, and then he never dies ever, or really have any problems actually.
Well, I mean, like you say, like he occasionally coughs up blood, and they kind of go with this whole idea of like he was blessed by the gods, but at a price, sort of
Well,
thing.
I don't really see what price that was. So, you can't say that he's dying of plot disease and then never make him die of plot disease. Like
JK,
that's
JK.
exactly. Like you can't just be like, well, you can't make a big deal out of that and then never do anything with that show.
I guess. I don't know. It didn't bother me that much, but I suppose it is true that he doesn't really have any serious repercussions from it aside from the occasional, blood cough.
Cough up blood. Are you okay? You turned off your target computer. What's wrong? Fine. Now.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I do I like in that episode though, episode 9 I think it is, where like it shows his backstory with the Empress and like he comes there to rescue her and he's like, but I don't even know if she remembers me, and then she like
do the graduate thing and he just runs in and
exactly, and she holds up like her pinky finger like, I remember your promise, Shinkei.
Still very
just the
creepy to
graduate.
me.
But it's
I'm
never
okay
really
with it.
it's not portrayed as a romance thing. It's more of a you saved my life and I owe my life to you sort of thing.
Yeah, because she didn't want to marry that dude because she really wanted to marry Shinkei.
Well, yeah, but she's a kid. It's more of a her thing than a him thing with the marriage thing. Is what I'm saying.
But he did the graduate thing,
okay,
which
You're
is
stuck
like,
on
is such
this.
which is not a good movie, but whatever.
Oh, that's a controversial opinion.
No,
A lot of
it
people
is.
like
that's
that movie.
his argument for everything. Like, what do you mean Lelouch and Colin aren't canon? They did the graduate thing.
No, they didn't do the graduate
I
thing.
know,
but
but-
Shinkei did the graduate thing.
He did indeed do that. That's also the episode where we get there's a party going on and Zero shows up with Kaguya and he and Schneisel have this chess match that actually is kind of important later down the road because
That part's really cool.
Schneisel basically puts his king into position like where he's totally going to lose.
That's cheating.
And Lelouch backs
can't
off.
Do that. Like in chess, like that's one of the rules is you cannot put your king into direct harm.
Well, Schneisel doesn't
You
play by
can't
the
make
rules.
that move, but also at the same time,
Why
I thought
would
that was
you?
weird because it showed that Lelouch wouldn't capitalize on the very obvious opportunity he was given. Lelouch was given the game, and yet he wouldn't accept it.
Well, because Lelouch was all like, "No, this is obviously a trap."
Well, it wasn't even that. It was more like, if I do this, I'm doing what he wants, and that's like, I don't want to do that.
I want to be winning.
Exactly, and I love it because Schneisel kind of psychoanalyzes him. Like, the Emperor wouldn't have hesitated to take my king, so I've just learned a little bit about you. But at the same time, Lelouch references that game later on in the show where he's like, you play games that you can't lose, you refuse, or no, not that you refuse to lose, but that you don't have the drive to win Schneisel, and that's why, he ends up defeating him at the end of the show, and that's directly related to that chess game, which I think is
We're
pretty
jumping
cool.
to the end once again.
Yeah, we're gonna do that a
Yeah,
lot.
we do. I mean, because the end is so awesome. But
The end has some strange points to it.
Also, the end does echo a lot of the things that were happening about the show, so it draws a lot of parallels, which I think is important.
Once the Flayas come into play,
that got
the
weird.
ending just goes berserk.
It does. It
well,
gets weird.
when nukes are introduced to warfare, it changes things.
Yeah.
I mean,
It really does.
That's how it works. But I like the whole battle where Zero kidnapped the Empress and Shinkei came after them. Like, used the mud of the terrain to help beat Lelouch, and he totally beat Colin in that battle and took her captive.
Which was impressive. I'm like, whoa, because Colin's the best at this.
But the reason was because her energy filler was low, so it ran out at the most inopportune moment.
She couldn't do that
Not-
microwave
Plot
attack.
convenience
Yes,
again.
laser arm.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
Persis plot convenience.
I did like it though, because there was a whole debate going on where what's his name, Detard, was like, oh, we should retreat, leave Colin behind, although she's important. One soldier does not value above the lives of all of us.
She's their best soldier.
But then Zero was like, no, we're gonna fight Shinkei, we're gonna save Colin, and everybody else was kind of like, yeah, because they
Also,
kind of are idealistic.
I
at
feel
heart.
like he kind of cheats.
Who, Lelouch or
but
Shinkei?
to win this fight, I was kind of like, okay, show, you're starting to get a little crazy here.
What you mean with when he brings out the Shinkiro and records the High Eunuchs totally doing that evil
Well,
talk?
that part made sense, but I kind of figured that was going to be a thing that happened. But he brings out the robot. I'm like, well, what? Why didn't you open with that? Or
the high
brought
eunuchs
it
were
out.
strange, but you're right. That was a strange plot point where he was holding back his big
Yeah,
weapon.
well, like when Colin gets captured, I'm like, well, what? You have a robot that could take his on. Go use it.
I'm trying to remember because I thought the justification was like that they were still like modifying it, like it wasn't ready until that moment. But I don't know if that was actually said.
The entire
So-
justification behind Zero's personal mech, that was always a bit strange to me, but I did like how it could come out with a massive cannon and just blow everything away.
Well, I loved it because it was like he shot a crystal out, shot a laser into the crystal that then refracted and did like tons of laser beams to just decimate
cool.
everything.
It
the
was
disco ball of death.
It was
Well,
a
if you had a mech like that, then you probably wouldn't want to put it out there right away for everyone to see and try to develop a strategy against it. You probably want to hold it until you absolutely had to use it.
I get that, but like, was it Colin worth it?
We're talking about a
She's
mech
their
that
best
has
pilot.
the capability to fire a projectile version of Colin's Gurren hand attack.
Right. But what
I'd
is
open with
important though is like, you know, he uses the mech at the mausoleum and it helps them, but the real reason they lose is because you know, he broadcast that message about the high eunuchs, you know, talking about the not people being scum, you know, it caused all these rebellions and it made Schneisel like, okay, we
Like,
can't cooperate with
Really
them anymore.
quickly, like
So,
just, like instantly caused rebellion.
They
Like,
still
that was fast.
they still had the military advantage even after he
He's
attacked with the
Lelouch of the
Shinkiro.
rebellion.
I know, but like I was like, whoa, those rebellions got started really quickly, like within 5 minutes. Good job, actually.
Everyone was
I
watching
guess.
TV.
Yeah, they were just all
True.
prepared for revolution. They were like right there, like now we can finally revolt. Yay, revolt!
I've been waiting for my reason.
Oh
Well,
my gosh!
I mean, it was kind of implied that the high eunuchs were just sort of consolidating power for themselves and letting the poor people, you know, to be poor. So, I mean, they had a reason to revolt before. So that was just the spark to add to the fire. And then he ends up coming back, you know, to Japan, you know, to the school, and then Gino and what's her name are there, the two other Knights of the Round. Join in, and we
I
get
love
probably
him.
the silliest episode of the show where they're like doing this whole school festival thing and they're running around with making the giant pizza and all this stuff.
More school stuff. And Suzaku's using a mech to make the pizza.
No, that was the first season. This time around, it was Gino took it over.
Oh.
Because he's like, oh, this is a commoner thing. This sounds
Right.
like fun.
Oh, I just now
Gino would not have been out of place in Oron.
He really wouldn't have
my-
been.
Yeah.
Or High
Okay,
School Host Club.
so I just now realized something. Gino making a pizza.
Gino's
Gino.
Gino's pizza.
Oh my.
Ha ha ha.
Oh.
It's hilarious. I do like Gino as just as a character. He's just kind of fun.
Yeah, it was
yeah.
Gino
He
and
was
that girl
weird.
who's always on her phone or something, making a
Yeah.
video journal.
I'm trying to remember what her name is.
You
but
mean
it's
Marion?
escaping me. Well, yes,
Lady
Marion,
Marion.
but not really.
Well, I don't know. She didn't really have much of a character outside of that. So
Well, her whole we knew from the beginning that she recorded things, you know, to fill in like the gaps in her memory and stuff like that, you know. So it was like it really was hinted
Well,
throughout
she
the whole
was-
show.
Yeah, she was just like, oh, you had the memento thing going on, but you want to talk about that? Okay. Well, hey, look, there's that guy over there that's Suzaku's friend who's also Knight of the Round. He's funny and like nice to talk to and not a complete jerk.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Orange Boy found out who she was?
Oh God.
Yeah. Her name is Anya. That's what it was. I just
Anya.
remembered that. But that is kind of an important episode because, well, it was funny because Sayako had been impersonating Lelouch while he was off, you know, being Zero in the Chinese Federation, apparently having masks that can totally change your face entirely.
Oh, yeah, they're the
She had the Black
Impossible
Widow
mask.
mask
I was-
from
I
Captain
was going with the
America.
Mission Impossible masks, but,
But,
yeah, sure,
uh,
whatever.
But she is not the best actor in the world because she got like every girl in the school.
Because apparently
to date
every girl in the
Lelouch.
school wants in Lelouch's pants. So
One of my favorite things was when Lelouch was watching her impersonate him, and she's jumping over the heads of people yelling, "Fare thee well," and he's, "You're too dramatic. Lelouch, have you seen yourself? Do you know how dramatic you are?"
too dramatic. Like, okay, that's fair.
It was also like, you know, brother isn't that fast. Like, you can't run like that.
That part's true. He
He's
really is
really
not.
bad at that,
He is really
actually.
not. By the way, was it ever hinted at? Because I don't really remember that. Was she ever hinted at that she was like a ninja in the first season?
No,
No,
I don't
it
remember.
came
Not
out
until the
nowhere,
end.
really.
Yeah, I mean, they showed the fact that she was working with a D-Tard, I think. She was one of his agents, you know,
But,
with the
like,
Black
she was
Knights
like
and
a
stuff.
ninja, and I was like, "What? Where did that come from?"
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's a ninja, whatever.
Just
It was
token
cool.
of
No,
ninja
you know,
maid
she
character,
was
of
just.
course.
It was like she was just a ninja. Whatever,
and
right, man? I'm a ninja. You're a ninja. Is whatever.
I think it made sense because she was kind of there to like help protect Nunnally and Lelouch. So it makes sense that she was more than just like a maid.
I got that, but
What a
like
great
ninja?
sitcom. The
Why not?
mastermind, the blind girl, and the ninja.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Ba-da,
I'd watch that show.
Hold on. Maybe she worked for Millie, because Millie's family's the one who took Lelouch and Nunnally in, and like they know their secret, that they're royalty. So maybe that was like their protection.
No, but she
Maybe?
met with Detard in the first season, and like in the second season, remember he sent her to go after Valletta, with the whole Valletta Ogie thing that happened later on. So
Yeah, but why was
She
she
was
there?
part-
Why was she there before Detard though?
I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe she was like a maid with them
With ninja
to begin
training.
with, but was also like a part of the Black Knights, and those two
Also
things were
ninja.
kind of like separate. I don't honestly know. I'd have
Spent
to.
7 years in Ninja Academy for this.
Yeah, to be a maid. I spent 7 years in Ninja Academy and 4 years in Maid Academy, and this is what I got.
Yeah, I'm training to be Hokage, guys. Come on.
Exactly, because apparently you also need to be a maid for that too.
Of course.
So,
But that was kind of that was the whole like Cupid Day thing, and you did kind of get a nice moment there with Shirley and Lelouch, and kind of got the fact that like Lelouch really does care about Shirley.
The ridiculousness that was the hats.
Yes,
And how that
Beanbag
one girl
hats.
got his hat. And he just Geassed her on the spot.
Like I need that back. But then that episode ends with like another patented Code Geass cliffhanger where Jeremiah is just going around using his Geass canceller. Of course, hits Shirley, and all of her memories come flooding back to her.
see, that was one of the
everyone
things
screams
I
no.
liked a lot more about this season versus the first season, is that this season did a really good job of justifying every episode as to some plot contribution, no matter how stupid the episode was, that they contribute in some way. Whereas the first season was, there were a couple episodes that I was like, dude, this is really need to be happening right now.
I suppose, like I think in R2, there's only like 2 episodes that are really like school festival episodes, like the ones that were really silly.
Yeah.
But Shirley's whole arc where she's like remembering everything and like freaking out, not knowing who to trust, Lelouch or Suzaku, almost like kills herself at the one point because she's like talking about how the two of them are both liars and all
Well, she
that.
thought they were working together for a while. I'm like, oh,
That's cute.
that would be nice.
But Jeremiah shows up and Lelouch confronts Jeremiah, uses the Geffion disturber on him, because he's like kind of a cyborg. But then he's kind of like, yeah, no, I served the royal family in Lady Marianne, and that's where my heart really lies. And he's like,
25% man, 25% machine.
Wow, did he
50%.
pull a 180 at that moment?
Oh yes, he's just like. Oh wait, what was I gonna say? It's
Lady
like
Marianne.
50% orange or something, and then it's like 100% loyalty.
that's true. Loyalty is like his thing. Don't
It was his
question
thing.
my
With his
loyalty.
arm blade that comes out.
Yeah,
He's more machine now than man.
twisted and evil.
He goes like Zuko, just
Twisted
honor.
and loyal.
But it makes sense actually when you think about it, because like in the first season he was always about like the pure bloods and like royalty and nobility and blah blah blah. So it makes sense that like he values the royal family above anything else, and of course Lelouch is part of the royal family, so it makes sense that he would serve
And
him.
It's so I got so excited for that because Jeremiah's fighting on Lelouch's side now. This is gonna be awesome, and then it was immediately followed by
Rolo killing Shirley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that Shirley's death scene hurt me a good bit.
Probably actually the biggest plot twist in like the first half of this season.
I walked away from the show for about 2 days after that.
Oh really? Did you really like Shirley then?
I liked Shirley because she was one of the humanizing elements of Lelouch. I liked her because she did eventually have this nice history that was even hidden from her. And then as soon as it got canceled out, I thought, all right, now this can actually move forward. This can be an interesting relationship the two of them have. And then, nope. Rolo.
No.
She got Roloed.
See,
She did.
it's funny because when she died, I was upset because I didn't want her to die, and that was like, because she was nice and whatever. But at the same time, I was kind of like, oh my god, thank you. This plot thread can be done now.
She
So
shot
I
a
am
woman
so
for Lelouch.
Sick. I was just so sick of should I ask him out? I'm like, yes, you should ask him out so that he can say no because he's too busy conquering the world right now. So he has no time to be shipped with you because he's also got C2 and Colin who are also helping him to conquer the world. You're like, you weren't doing anything.
Yes,
for
the
conquering
entire
world plot
school
thread.
was trying to get with Lelouch. but-
Seriously. Why is
surely.
every anime is like that. Every guy is just like, oh.
Well, I think part of it was because Sayako was being really nice to all the girls, and thus, like,
That
I think
was true.
he said yes to one, and so all of them came.
Wasn't there
in a
that scene
drove.
where Psycho was saying, all right, you have these appointments. You're with this girl for 15 minutes. You're with this girl for the next 25. You're with this girl for the next other 15.
Yeah, I was like, and then he had to go do a meeting as Zero and then come back to do more dates with all these girls. And he's like, no, Sayako,
I
this is
hate
not going to work.
this.
But the part that hurts me the most was when he uses his Geass on Shirley, like, I order you not to die. It's
Oh.
like, yeah, that's not how it works, Lelouch.
I don't
Sorry.
know, it worked for Suzaku pretty well.
Well, yeah,
Well,
that was more of a, I command you to live, so stop doing what you're doing. It's not I'm going to make your bullet wound heal, because I can't do that.
I like how it became a curse for Suzaku.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that was the best part. But just, I command you. I'm not God. No matter how much I like to think of myself as being a god, I'm actually not one.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, after that point, like, Rolo was pretty irredeemable for me, and that's where he was like, I'm going to use you as like a bomb to kill V2, because then they went after the Geass order,
Yeah, he just like
and that didn't end up happening.
reacted though, like to the whole thing. Like Rolo was just like, it was just like a reaction. Like, nope, you're dead now. I don't
All
care.
right. Well, and to be fair, she had she said something that made him realize, like, oh, she knows about Lelouch.
I know, but like it was just like an instantaneous reaction. He's like, nope.
Well, he's a heartless murderer. I mean, that's kind of what he did for like 12 years of his life or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but it was nice to see, like, V2 finally, like, do something, because he actually did pretty good in that mech that Jeremiah used to use, and it was only when Cornelia was like being a badass and like shot him down that he was able to be defeated. Kind of nice to see her come back in the show. Bartley, that fat general guy who just keeps on getting kind of thrown around in the show, finally got killed. I kind of just felt bad for him.
I didn't really care.
He got tossed
He
around.
got axed off.
He did. But then the Emperor totally takes away V2's code, and he gets brought into this the Seas world, and that's where we, like you said, that's kind of like a climax of the early part of the show where we finally learn the truth about C2, that her wish is to die, and you
This
see
show
the,
had 3 endings.
It really did.
yeah, it really does, and you see like the full thing of her past about how she had this Geass that made people love her, but then the nun that was like totally using her, forced her to take her code, become immortal and all that, and she's working with Charles so he can accomplish his plan. Charles has reached the point where he can, take away someone's code. He did it to V2, blah, blah, blah.
That was never made clear to me. I didn't fully understand how that worked.
You mean how he took away the code?
The whole code thing, because I get that someone who has the full code Geass is able to grant Geass to other people, but then how is the code transferred?
Well, the idea is that you give Geass to somebody, and then that person, if their Geass develops to a certain point, then they become capable of taking your code away from you. Or, as we saw with the Nun and C2, it's also possible for that person to force the code onto somebody else.
Okay.
Actually, because C2 didn't exactly take that willingly. So that's the reason. And Geass, C2 said, like, none of the people I've contracted with have ever gotten to the point where they could kill me.
And
But
then
Charles
once
is at
you-
that point.
Once you get the code, it's like becoming a vampire. You freeze in time right there, and you don't die anymore.
Right. Well, yeah, you become you lose your Geass ability, but you become immortal. You can do everything C2 can do, because Lelouch totally killed his father, by reflecting his Geass off like those mirrors and made him shoot himself. But then he's like, "Ha! I'm immortal now. Sucks to be you."
It's like, I have some questions to ask you. I'm not going to answer them. Fine, then I command you to die.
Pretty much.
Well, nope.
Nope.
Lol. No.
Never
It was
mind.
pretty cool, though, that we finally wound up in that giant heavenly-looking area that we keep seeing Charles just standing and yelling at nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the whole sort of Akasha thing, like you started talking about that, he's going to use the code to accomplish his plan. But I did like how Luce learned all that stuff about her memories, came back, and was like, you need to die. When you die, you should have a smile on your face, Is this really what you want, C2? And she basically pushes Charles away, and Lelouch blasts that place to bits and seems to trap the Emperor there, but then she comes back and she has the amnesia,
Yep. And not only does he kill his father there, he kills his mother there.
Well, no, that's later on
That's
the
the
show.
second
That's just where he,
ending.
Yeah.
That's
the
the
second
second of the three
time that he
endings.
gets there. Okay.
the second of the 3 endings. That's just, he seems to trap the Emperor there, but of course he's not really trapped. That whole sequence, though, is also important because a few of the Black Knights are like, hey, we're kind of like shooting a bunch of kids here. Like, what is Zero making us do? Kind of caught more doubt within the Black Knights against Zero.
That's where it really begins.
That
Yeah.
is where it really begins, because like I was saying, when they first accepted him back, they accepted him back so quickly that I was like, guys, he abandoned you.
But it's because the leaders, like both Ogi and Toto and Detard, like all of them were like pretty quickly like, no, Zero is the one who can lead us, sort of thing.
We are not smart enough to come up with plans to beat
really
Britannia.
aren't.
We need Zero's brain.
They really are not.
I mean,
good
that's usually the way he always did it, right? Like he said, I'm Britannian, the only reason, I give you results, that's all that
enough.
matters.
No, he never said that he was Britannian. He refused to let them know he was Britannian. 'cause
Eventually, there was that scene
'cause-
at the top of the mountain.
that was
He
the
did
whole.
not, actually, no, he didn't say he was Britannian, but he said I'm not Japanese.
He did say I was in
that.
Japanese, but
Yes.
it was like, well, what does it matter? He could be
Right.
anything, except it's totally probably Britannian, because, statistics.
Statistics, my eternal weakness. So then after that, like he forms the United Federation of Nations. They're building up towards this big battle between Britannia and all of them. Because he's like taking the Chinese Federation. All of their allies are kind of pooling their resources. The Black Knights are like their armies. So they're gonna go fight. And the Emperor sort of like interrupts his message. And is like, "Ha, I'm still alive. Boo on you."
Suck it.
And
Charles is back.
and he like freaks out and is like, "Oh, I gotta protect Nunnally. The only thing I can do, call Suzaku. Hey, I need to talk to you about something." And they come and meet each other at the Kururugi Shrine and kind of have this confrontation that's been building throughout a lot of the show. And like you say, that's where he like Suzaku asks him all these things about like, what about Shirley's death? It was my fault. What about Yuffie's death? I
That
ordered
one
her to do it.
That's
that
a
one was
very common anime trope, is a big change happening at a shrine.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that? One of
Yeah.
my favorite anime of all time it's called Future Diary.
Oh yeah, Mirai Nikki.
And the main character in that, he really experiences a huge change at a shrine. And then there's a few other ones that I've seen where it always seems to be that's where it's building up
Well,
to.
it's a place. Shrines represent a place of like calming and like peacefulness, like a place of like reflection upon your life. So that it makes sense to like have like a big character moment and change like in like a place where you traditionally associate with like reflecting upon your life.
True. It's just that kind of took me out of it, because to have such a cliche moment in that area, it kind of it felt very anime to me, if that makes sense.
But
because-
at the same time, it makes sense because that was the Kururugi Shrine. That's like where they grew up together, where like they first met. So it
Yeah.
has sentimental value.
And then Suzaku got betrayed.
Right. Well, I liked it though, because like talking about like Yuri Lowenthal, that good old intensity that I loved out of Sasaki from the first season. He really got it there, where he was like screaming at Lelouch, like, "Why'd you give me this Geass that makes me live?" All these sorts of things. But they were sort of like coming to like an agreement, and like he was like, if you stop the war, I'll save Nunnally, and Lelouch was like, really, you will? And they were about to do it, and then Schneidzel's forces come in. And it's like, oh, Suzuki, you betrayed me. Not
the
cool with that.
never-ending theme of Code Geass. We can do it. Nope.
No happiness
Betrayal.
for you.
Haha, guess what?
Yeah. But then he escapes because he had used a Geass and Guilford in the past that made him look like Cornelia when he like said something with his tie or whatever.
Was kind of stretching it again.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I feel like I was trying to remember if there was like a hint of that at some point in the show, that like he had made a call to somebody we didn't know who it was.
I always thought that was hilarious.
I did it, and I'm like, okay, then.
Because he would
guess you
immediately snap into
did.
immediate rage mode.
Of course he does.
I'm like, sure, okay, you did, Lelouch, whatever.
He never
I
stopped to
believe you.
question why she might be getting guns pointed at her. He just kill crazy immediately.
Kill crazy. Exactly. And that's around the time like, Suzaku goes and is getting ready for battle too, and Nina gives him the flare, and he's talking about, we have to be prepared not to fire it, just as much as we have to be prepared to fire it. And she's like, no, you gotta fire it. You gotta kill 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're gonna kill him because I'm obsessed and crazy.
Just a little bit.
Zero's my trigger.
The
Yeah.
first time a flare got launched, that was serious.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't just explode. It's like those Metroid super bombs. It goes on a giant circle, and then everything that was in the radius is just gone.
Yeah.
You see the
Mhm.
infrastructure
They're cool
of Japan, where the ground once was. You see like underground subway
Yeah.
tunnels.
It's
Yeah.
cool. That's a cool looking nuke thing.
It is. No, it's a cool
It's like that
look,
thing in Watchmen.
certainly. Yeah. And it is, it's also kind of cool, Lelouch uses his plan with the Gefion disturbers in the subways, like shut down all of Tokyo and like shut down a bunch of their nightmares, so they can make their move. And things seem to be going pretty well, it's not going so
well.
good. what's his name, or Colin escapes, comes out with her with the Gurren, the flying version of the Gurren, and beats that crazy
Vampire
knight.
Japan.
Yeah, the vampire of Britannia.
Yeah, well,
I don't know him by any other name.
He's not relevant.
Luciano Bradley. That was
Not
his name.
relevant.
I
is
liked
what his name is.
I liked him because he was Vic Mignogna in the English dub. Vic Mignogna doing a villain, which I never see. So it's kind of fun to see that.
Didn't he always have that? He always had something that he said.
It was
always,
what do you think people value most? Their own life, of course.
Of course.
Always said
because he that was one of the funniest moments of the whole show to me, was exactly how irrelevant he was, because he sounded like he was very deep. He sounded like he enjoyed what he was doing so much, and then nope, you get the microwave hand.
Microwave hand.
Pretty much. Well, it was a moment to show how awesome Colin was.
Yeah.
But then Suzaku's getting the crap beaten about him, and he's like, I'm not going to fire it, I'm not going to fire it. And then that pesky little Geass that tells him to live forces him to fire it, and lots of people die. And
irony points.
And we see it's interesting when you go back and rewatch that episode, you see kind of hints that it's that Nunnally is in a different plane than the one you think she's in. Because I think the her assistant, the one who was running Japan from behind her back, was on the actual one, and whereas she was on the decoy, whereas Nunnally was on the actual one, and she said something, and Sayako, made this face because she was on board that ship with Nunnally because she'd gotten on board, and Rollo hadn't, because he was going to kill her and all this stuff.
Because Rollo would be crazy.
Of course, Rollo's crazy. So then it's oh crap, those players are really powerful, and Schneisel comes with one of them on board his ship to talk to the Black Knights and tells them all about Geass and about Lelouch, and it's all right, well, we've got to betray him. No choice now.
Well, I guess we have to betray him now that we have this information, because we have literally no other course of action. Wait, can we not betray him? No, we're betraying him now.
It's not like he's helped us time and time again.
Yeah. At the same time, I think it makes sense for them to betray him because they don't know. He could have totally used his Geass on all of them to make him follow.
That's true.
Follow
they're
them.
winning the war, and this is what they wanted.
They're not really winning per se.
They're going to be winning.
I'm kind of curious to
We
how,
just got flayed. That means we have to betray.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to how he got all the Black Knights to believe him about Geass. He has this mystical power with it. Now stay with me, guys. Yeah, he can control you with his eye.
Listen to me. You make eye contact with him, and he can make you do anything.
Well, he has proof, these are all the people he uses Geass on, and makes all these things connect, how he used his Geass on the one JLF person to make them explode, back in the original show. And Ogi comes in because he had just been told everything by Valletta, and he says, Schneisel's right, and that I think is what really does it, because obviously they trust Ogi. And it's also probably part of the reason why all that works, because Zero, he's up in his room because he's freaked out about Nunnally dying and all that, and so he's not there to defend himself in any way, so they really have no choice.
So now we have to betray.
Although I do like how Ogi says, we have a condition, give us back Japan, we're betraying our comrade, we need to get something out of this. This is what we've been fighting for.
It's Japan. And he's whatevs.
So at least they admit it, we're betraying him, but we still need, what we've been fighting for this whole time. That doesn't change that.
Then there's that great scene of the actual betrayal. He walks out in his full Zero outfit.
We know what's going on. And then they put all the guns at him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then take off your mask, and it unfolds. He takes it off, and they just see his eyes, and then he pulls that mask down. And oh God, he's a Prince of Britannia.
Yeah. Well, it sucks there because
no, we can't let him die.
I've got the hots for him.
I have the hots for him. Also, he's good.
Yeah, and Colin's sort of I need to know, Lelouch, how do you really feel about me, or what's your true feelings or whatever. And he says something I used you like a pawn all this time, and then she's all right, goodbye, Lelouch. And then he whispers, Colin, you have to live, and she looks back because he thinks he's about to die there. But then Rollo comes in.
And
saves
Deus Ex
him.
Rollo again.
Well, and once again, it makes sense because Rollo, is crazy obsessed with Lelouch, even though he totally, yelled at him earlier in that episode. He's the type to come in and save him, even though at that point Lelouch is saying, I don't want to live anymore. Rollo, why don't you just let me die? Because Rollo, to be fair, Rolo kind of has in his head like, well, that was just a lie, big brother, right? Like what you said about me, being a waste of space and
it
all
wasn't.
that.
I hate you. But he kept pausing.
Because
time,
Rolo
and he
looks
kept
at him
talking.
and he goes, "That's one thing I know about you, brother. You're a liar." That's absolutely true.
Well, yeah, and I think Lelouch says, like, that's right, well, your brother is just a big liar, because I lied about everything with you, actually. But I do think that, I honestly think, critically, that is maybe one of the weakest points of R2 for me personally, because just early in that episode, Lelouch was like, I hate you, I loathe you, I despise you. And at the end of the episode, he's like, stop it, Rolo, do you want to die?
Also, I just did not care that Rolo died. Like, they made it out to be like this epic.
It was
like,
awful
epic.
Death. It was
and
like
I
epic. It was an epic action scene, but I didn't really feel
was
anything.
staring
Well, he
at
was
I'm
having
like,
a
I
heart
don't
attack every
care.
time he used his Geass.
Because he's a faulty product,
Yeah.
basically.
I was staring at that. I'm like, I don't really care that you're dying. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't care for that much either, considering he killed Shirley.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's the thing.
that's the major thing. But then you kind of think back, like, well, it's not his fault he's like this, though.
I guess not. But
And you feel just a tiny bit bad for what he's gone through his entire life. But then you realize he killed Shirley, so get him.
so screw him. All right.
Yeah. And also throughout that episode, they've been cutting like back and forth, showing Suzaku, who's obviously like really traumatized about everything, like standing in the crater. And I think near the end, he gives like just the full evil laugh.
No, he does the Lelouch laugh. I'm like, see, you have gone super villain, haven't you? I told you.
Yeah. Now, see,
About standards.
earlier on in the show, like earlier on in R2, I think he's still Suzaku because like there's that part where he that guy tries to kill him, and he like wrestles him to the ground. It's like sign his death warrant, and he won't do it.
Well, there's also that time, but we also glossed over the point where he almost tortured Colin and used the refrain on her just because he wanted, just because he needed the information. He's like, no, I refuse to because Lelouch would do, this is the sort of thing Lelouch would do. But if it wasn't for Lelouch, I would totally be doing that right now. So be happy that he's a thing.
I suppose. But it's Lelouch that drove him into that corner in the first place.
Yeah, I know, but still.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. I forgot about that scene, but that does sort of show like how desperate he is. Although he does throw it away.
It's almost a parallel to the Schneisel chess match.
Yeah, but speaking about Schneisel, in the next episode, Suzaku comes into him and is like, "Yeah, I did an awesome thing. I blew up, the Black Knights, so I deserve to be named the Knight of One." It's like only the Emperor can name the Knight of One. It's like, well, that means we need to go kill the Emperor.
Well, then I guess we'll have to have the Emperor here. Schneisel.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
And Schneisel's like, well, I've always wanted to be the Emperor.
Well, and he does bring up a good point. Like, he considers our affairs to be mundane. Like our war to the death with the Black Knights. The Emperor's apparently always been off doing his research,
I don't
metaphysical nonsense.
It is, hokey, his ancient religion that nobody cares about.
It's true, and it is interesting there because Suzaku basically takes like what he's been saying, like I've talked before about how results are what do you want to say, like the means to an end. If it's an evil end, they're not worth anything. But like that was naive. The only thing that matters are results. And he's like basically completely changed.
Super villain. I'm gonna go do everything that Lelouch was doing already. So I'm switching to Lelouch's side on this philosophical argument.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with the whole Suzaku Lelouch philosophical debate. It really kind of goes away at that point because they're basically both doing the same thing.
Which clearly means exactly. And also, it does seem to be that the show's kind of siding with Lelouch's way of doing things. That the extreme eliminate the problem because only results matter.
Well, at that
thing
point,
is like
you
the
kind
best.
of have to, given the scale the show has risen to.
But like, I feel like that since that was so central to the first half of the show, that by this point the show is like, no, we're deciding this is the philosophy that's correct. And I'm like, is it though?
I don't necessarily think that's true because Lelouch still ends up killing tons of people. He still does all these evil things.
He
so
wins.
does his. Well, I guess he gets killed at the end. I don't know if you can call that winning.
Well, that was his plan.
It was his. I mean, we succeeded his plan. It's hard to say that he won because he wasn't exactly happy at the end, was he?
Well, he also won because he got to kill the Emperor and capture and beat Schneisel.
No, that's true.
He did get those things.
But and I also think like it makes sense for Suzaku's morals to be broken because he's going on about how like I'm better than Lelouch. I'm not gonna be as evil as him. I'm gonna be more moral.
I'm
Then
gonna try to be less evil.
Then he shot a nuke and killed like 10 million people. And it's like, well, I can't really claim to that anymore, can
Well,
I?
never mind. Maybe
of course,
I am
it was
evil.
under Geass.
Well, he says that like, no, it was Geass, the power that twists a man's will. And it's like, but in the end, it's just the same,
Yeah.
And also Nina's kind of freaking out there, like, I didn't know it was going to kill so many people. It's like, you developed a nuke, Nina. What did you expect?
I don't know. Like I said, it's like Oppenheimer in real life. Like they knew everything that they were doing.
Right.
They just kept going anyway.
Right. That's also where we see Marion takes over Anya, like coming full circle with this whole thing about how C2 had been talking to Marion, like, while she was totally alone throughout both seasons of the show. And now
we keep seeing these scenes where C2's just sort of sitting on a couch and she's seemingly just talking to herself. And the whole time we're wondering what's going on.
Yep, that comes full circle. Why Anya had these weird flashes of Geass stuff, like knocking her unconscious and all these things. It's like, all right, Marion is sort of inside her. She wakes up C2. They go off to Community Island as well. That's where Lelouch and Suzaku and everybody is heading. And Lelouch is kind of his theatrical self, like burning all these purple flames, like making the nightmares, do the salute as he's like going, I'm going to go kill the Emperor, blah, blah, blah.
Just gets them all to bow and do that thing. And then even you made the comment, they're like, yeah, I mean, he had to command them all to do that. And I'm like, see, he does just have such a flair for the dramatic, doesn't he?
He really does. And it's at that point, though, you can sort of see that Lelouch has actually kind of been fighting with the gloves off up to this point, because he tells them, those people he's captured, because eventually they start betraying the Britannian forces, like there's a coup going on amongst their ships, and it's like, all of you be my slaves or obey my orders, something like that, because it's like he can only use his Geass once, but if he tells you you will obey my every command, that's basically the same as casting 1,000,000 Geasses.
Yep. I command you to be my slave.
I wish for more wishes.
Pretty much.
You can't wish for more wishes. Well, then I wish for more genies.
All right, touche, sir.
I also like how Lord Waldstein defends the Emperor there, like the Knight of One, fights Suzaku with a sword, and he's like, why would the Emperor trust a man who constantly betrays everyone who's around him? It's kind of like, yeah, you kind of do that, don't you, Suzaku?
Now, I forget, what was Waldstein's Geass again? Because he keeps that one eye sewn shut.
Right. He can see the future, like 2 seconds into the future, so lets him predict people's moves, that sort of thing. Because apparently he got it probably from I don't know if he got it from C2 or V2, to be honest, but he was associated with Marion, apparently.
It was probably V2.
Maybe, because that's more the Emperor, I guess. But it is pretty cool there at the end of the episode. Lelouch destroys the exit to the Ragnarok connection, and he's like, well, Father, let's stay trapped here for all eternity. And I like that because, Lelouch doesn't know what's going to happen in the next few episodes. So in his mind, he's like, well, I was ready to die. The Black Knight's betrayed me. Nunnally is dead. Like, I have nothing to live for. Rollo saved me. So I'm going to go seal myself up with the Emperor. He's immortal, but we're just going to spend eternity locked away here.
I'm going to sit here. I'll die eventually. He'll sit here forever.
For the rest of my life, I'm going to passively aggressively annoy my dad.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad.
Hey.
Guess what? I locked you in here.
I locked you.
Hey.
What happened to my mom?
What happened to my mom? What happened to my mom? But I just like it because it's like showing how Lelouch is sort of like just at this point where he's like, yeah, no, I don't have anything more to live for, so I'm just going to do this last good deed for the world sort of thing. And then the next episode is the one, as I told you, it explains so many things and yet is also so very confusing, where they go into like the full details of the Ragnarok correction and talk about Marion and the Emperor's past, and like they're playing with V2 and C2 about how they were going to create this world without lies, and where the past, present, and future all sort of coalesce on this one point.
That was so bizarre to me.
Yeah, I like to call that the Evangelion episode.
It's similar in a lot of ways, but I actually like it a lot because it answered so many questions that we'd had, like what happened to Marion, how V2 was the one who did it, and like that Nunnally's blindness was like not psychosomatic, but it was something cast on her. Those memories were cast on her and Lelouch by the Emperor.
Yeah.
To build the argument, throw the assassin off the trail sort of thing. Like, it was all done to protect you. We sent you to Japan, to protect you. And it like flashed back to C2 saying to Lelouch in the first season, like, if you care about somebody, you'll keep them far away from you. If they stay close to you, they're going to get hurt. I think that was what her talking about Shirley, back in the Mao episodes from season 1.
Oh my God, Mao.
I loved Mao. So that was all pretty cool, and it certainly gave like a bit more like grayness to the Emperor, and Marion, and that like they did have some good reasons for what they did, but then again, Lelouch sort of refutes everything they say, like, you just told me, you said the dead would rejoin the living, you don't give a damn about the future, like, you didn't care if Nunnally and I lived or die, the plan was so important to you that it didn't matter. So that's just basically Lelouch, like, totally philosophically refuting his two parents, even Marion, who obviously he cared for a lot when she was alive, and Lelouch and Suzaku and C2 come there as well and kind of side with him, and he develops
the Ragnarok connection, and it opens up to the world again,
and then they thwart the Emperor's vaguely defined plan.
Yeah, I guess it is sort of vaguely defined. At the same time, it was like we saw him at that place throughout like all of season 1,
Yeah,
every
I
now
know,
and then.
but that doesn't mean I don't really understand what they were gonna do. Were they gonna pause time? Were they gonna make everybody like C2 and V2, where they don't ever age and die?
The thing I saw this online. A better explanation for it than I could say was that they were going to take away everyone's like masks and affect reality, making all humans, both living and dead, into one being.
Otherwise known as the Human Instrumentality Project.
Exactly.
we become the grave mind.
Oh yeah, I
really
mean, like,
kinda was.
but like, what is that like? Do they just all become the Borg and everybody's
One of
cool
us.
and high five?
One of us.
Well, it was basically-
when you are me.
It was implied it was going to be like, because C2 said you chose like a forward march of time. So like they were going to stop time, like the past and the present were going to come together, and everyone was just going to be
that
together.
doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I
at
guess.
any level that you can really think about that, except for like it's a very metaphysical thing that doesn't.
Well,
it's so
yeah.
vaguely defined. It's like, oh, I don't really feel threatened by your plan because I really don't understand your plan. So,
Yeah.
but your plan, I don't understand it. So it's clearly evil.
Well,
I'm just going to command God to stop you now.
basically anything
Geass,
that's
check
like
God.
we're going to like
God.
we're going to stop humanity like from being violent by like making everybody the same. We're gonna make everyone into like one being, sort of thing. It's always like,
was sort
I don't know
of
what that
that-
means.
but
It was sort of that.
it's
idea
bad.
of
Like you get that.
Is it?
you can't.
Yes.
You can't harm yourself. You can't harm humanity if you are all of humanity. It was this
I
strange
disagree.
idea of. It was this weird idea of like you.
Like-
Like you can't tickle yourself because you know what's doing it, so you can't kill other people. I don't know. It's like if you're all the same entity, you understand each other completely.
You can't kill me if I kill myself.
You
Exactly,
didn't win.
but-
You didn't win. I suicide.
Yeah.
That's suicide. But you didn't suicide because you're still alive talking to me. Oh, wait, what? I'm
Well, like
confused. What's
Lelouch
going
had said, like that's a world without change. I wouldn't want to live in a world like that. Like and Marion was trying to tempt Suzaku, like, oh, you'll be able to be with Yuffie again.
on? I
all the
guess
people you've
kind of
died with.
vaguely. Sure, whatever.
Died. But it was kind of cool how Lelouch developed like his second eye, his second Geass, and sort of convinced C's world, the collective unconscious, like to accept his plan rather than Charles's plan. They start dissolving.
Yes, check God.
I was sort of concerned at that point because he had been losing control of his Geass with just one eye up to that point.
Well, he lost control of it with the one time with Yuffie, but since he got that contact, like it really
Yeah.
wasn't a problem because it would block it.
But C2 eventually, she says when she first gives it to him, she says, this won't last forever. Eventually it'll just bleed through.
Yeah, but that never really ends up happening.
Well, yeah. Sort of like how the one guy doesn't die of his illness.
Shinkai never dies anyway, so whatever. Immortal.
But he's immortal.
He clearly is.
I do kind of like, though, at the end of that, like, the Emperor's gripping his neck, and he's like, if you refute what I offer, you'll inherit his world, Schneisel's world, Because there's sort of like an interesting dichotomy between Lelouch, Schneisel, and the Emperor. They all three kind of have like these plans to change the world, and it's sort of like a duel of which one's going to win in the end.
Who sucks the least?
Indeed. And the episode ends with one of my favorite moments of the show for sure. We fast forward 1 month,
For some reason.
we're at the palace, and it's like the new Emperor's here. It's like, oh, hey, it's Lelouch.
This
You're
scene
alive.
is amazing.
And Suzaku like comes down when
Spin
all
kicks.
those spin kicks the spears away. He can break metal with his bare hands.
Seriously. No, with his bear spin kick.
And I love how the next in line, the essential prince of Britannia, he's like, all right, Lelouch, little
See,
cousin.
That's
this
what
is
I don't
hilarious.
understand. Because when they were talking about committing a coup against the Emperor, I'm like, Schneisel's the second son, right? Like,
Yeah.
what about the first son?
Well, if they're committing a coup, they're already breaking the rules, so it doesn't matter at that point.
But Lelouch is like, nope, I am Emperor now, and I'll command you with my Geasses to
Acknowledge
listen
me
to
as Emperor.
He looks at the entirety of Britannian royalty in one room and makes them all his slaves.
Yep.
Pretty much.
In one grand sweeping, he's using his hands like he always does. It's
Yeah.
great.
He does the big whoosh
He does like doing the thing with his arms.
He does like to
True.
do the thing with his arms, and then
The Jack Skellington poses where just his hands are flayed out.
he does that.
He really does do that.
But I was confused because I'm like, why did the month did you? So you left the place that? How did you get out of there? Like,
Well,
'cause
no,
there-
C2 got them in. C2 can get them out.
so C2 got them out. Then they spent a month going from Japan to
Well-
wherever the head of Britannia is, because it's apparently not England. So
no, it's in America.
See-
Well, what we would consider to be America now, but is part of Britannia.
well, it's still a continent, America. So
Well, maybe it's not called North America anymore.
And so now it's really fun because the Black Knights are still fighting against Britannia. It's just Britannia is now run by Lelouch.
By zero.
The one
basically.
guy that made
Even though now he's kind of going
Succeed.
without the mask.
Well, right.
exactly what Trent said. Like the one guy who like made them win, or was going to win the war for
But
them.
like pretty
Now the other
immediately,
side, and he has a stupid hat now.
Lelouch starts doing some good things though. Like he demolishes the nobility. Frees Japan. It's not Area 11 more. It's Japan. Everyone's praising Emperor Lelouch. Like he seems to be doing some good things. And of course, Tamaki is immediately like, "See, I knew he would. He is my best buddy."
Shut up! Why are you still talking? Okay.
All that great honeymoon phase of politicians.
Exactly. Well, no, it's just like, okay, Tamaki, here. This is the talking stick. You can only talk when you have the stick. Throw the stick out the window. Go get it.
Go get it.
Tamaki
Go get
was
it,
a
Tamaki.
great character because he only had one thing that he did.
He really did.
which
he-
was constantly get shot out of the battle.
Exactly.
It's an A for effort. He
He also
tries.
sucks up to Lelouch a lot. He likes to do that.
Well, of course,
A
he
lot of
does.
people think he was super annoying. I absolutely adored every moment that he showed up on screen because you knew he was about to get hit in the face.
Well, it's not like they dance around the bush. Like everyone says, like he's awfully dense, isn't he? Like they make fun of how stupid he is.
Exactly. He was the most self-aware comic relief.
He really was. And that's the part where Suzaku beats all the other Knights of the Round, including
Sit.
the Knights of
down.
One.
He is the Knight of Zero.
I don't
Yeah.
even know. You made up that title. I don't care.
Made up.
I'm Emperor. What are you
I'm
gonna
Emperor.
do?
What
do
you
you
gonna
want?
do about it?
Acknowledge it as a real title.
I also like how Suzaku uses like the command to live to like make him stronger in battle. Like,
Yeah, he just started to abuse that. Like, I'm gonna abuse that.
like
It's gonna
oh,
be fun.
well, you can see the future. Oh well, I get to live.
I can live.
The scene that really stood out to me was the scene that sort of echoed that initial acknowledgement as Emperor, because he does that to nobility to really gain and solidify his power, but then he just starts bringing in regular civilians of Britannia, and he says, all right, everyone, just look up here real fast. You're all my slaves.
To be fair, they weren't civilians; they were soldiers.
True.
But still,
All you soldiers, yeah, you all my elite guard now.
yeah.
And you're gonna do everything I tell you to.
Yeah, what was it? It wasn't even obey my orders. It was be my slaves. Like that's
Oh, hey,
exactly what he
Lelouch.
said.
Oh, hey, Lelouch.
Exactly.
Now, my stupid hat needs straightening.
Behold
pillow
my
hat.
stupid hat.
God, I hate that hat.
The Stay Puft Marshmallow.
He doesn't
so
wear
stupid.
He doesn't wear it that often.
He doesn't wear that often, but I made fun of
feel-
it every time it came on the screen.
I feel he definitely probably had some fun in the spare time that he had all those people under his control. He just had like one or two people do some meaningless task like make his bed or just
Well,
straighten his hat.
There was
or-
actually a shot because they had all of his other siblings who were like maids, and he made all like the other royal children into maids and butlers in one
Yeah.
of the scenes. 'Cause it's like, I can do that now.
And
It's gonna be fun.
that's also where he's like, I'm ready to join the United Federation of Nations now that I've proved that I'm the one true emperor.
And then this scene happens.
Yeah, you're
Awkward.
talking. Yeah, where it's like, I love Lelouch's style of democracy. It's like, I'm gonna hold you all at gunpoint. And he's like, well, why aren't you?
Are we voting under duress?
Yeah, won't you be voting under arrest? Will you stop them from voting? And then let the democratic process begin.
I love that line
Let
so much.
democracy
That's
be
when
democracy.
everyone thinks to themselves, you know what? This might not be as good as we thought. And we as the audience, we're all thinking, what are you doing?
Whoa, Lelouch, you've gone super, super villain evil.
Like, Lelouch,
Finally, you commit.
You got control of Britannia. You had this man. Come on, what's going on?
Well, and then everyone's like, Lelouch is now the enemy of the world.
Yeah.
Like that's basically what he just did there.
And I know it's going for that.
Except
Eventually,
except
we
that
understand
Schneisel
everything.
is even more evil.
But we
Well,
don't
of course he
understand
was.
it until the very end.
Right. And also, I do love the scene where Colin escorts him there, and at first he's acting like he doesn't even know her, like playing the emperor thing. And she kisses him, and he doesn't respond to that. And she's like,
Just
"Goodbye."
Decide already, shipping.
But seeing the ending, you know why he's like that, though.
I do know why he's like that, but like, decide, ship.
All the ships are getting ready. Prepare the cannons. And then the one ship shows up. Prepare the cannon.
Indeed.
Exactly.
And then Schnauz was like, yeah, no, I kind of bombed the city of Pendragon, so all of them are dead. And then it's
his
like,
totally
with his
evil
Death
looking
Star.
fortress. No, like I've played at JRPG before. Every Tales game ends on something looking like that.
Yes.
the flying palace thing.
It's so creepy looking.
It's
it
just
shoots
straight out of
nukes.
Symphonia.
It really is just straight out of Symphonia or Abyss. Like it just shoots nukes, and I'm staring at that. I'm like, you're like way more. Like your plan is to nuke every major city in
It's
the
a
world
castle
because I
on
feel like
a
it's.
cloud that fires nukes.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Schneisel, though, is like Cornelia talks about like how, you know, he could have, in a different world, he would have made like a great leader. He doesn't,
No,
like,
he wouldn't
driven
have.
by like the same ambition that, you know, other
No.
people have. Like,
He was
he's
crazy.
smart. But yeah, I mean,
He was crazy,
In
and
the
he
end.
wanted to nuke the world for reasons that were not really explicit, I think.
I don't know. I think he explained it pretty well in his own warped logic. Like, people, despite what people say, they want to be ruled by religion, by leaders, by, you know,
So,
everything.
I'm going to rule them with nukes.
He really had Templar logic from Assassin's Creed.
He did.
Yeah, well, he's like, I'm gonna force peace, you know, by shooting everyone with nukes, and if you
gonna
disobey, you
force
die.
He hold a gun to everyone's head.
Exactly.
They're
I'm
gonna
going to
do what they
force
say.
peace by blowing up a very large chunk of the world, and then hopefully everybody who's
I-
left alive
isn't
at the
that
end.
how America does things?
Kinda, yeah.
Ba-da-botch.
Okay.
But, like, you-
yes,
like-
but shush.
We're getting political now.
Well, a little spoiler
okay.
thing, you know, that's
Well,
basically what the
Brandon.
whole
No.
it's basically what the whole Winter Soldier plot line was from Captain America 2.
Yeah, I know, and that was bad because Captain America was
And so-
like always right. That's the thing about the Marvel universe. Captain America's always right. So whatever side he's on, just
well, if
pick
they
that
do
one.
Civil War, that could be very different.
Nope, he was right in Civil War too, because Tony Stark, Reed Richards were super evil in that.
Yeah.
And that also ends like on the big cliffhanger. Oh no, I'm not going to rule the Britannia. It's going to be this person. You know, come down. Oh, it's Nuttally. She's alive. How about that? You
And
know.
they give the blind girl the trigger for nukes.
She asks
Not a
for
good-
it though.
She asked, "I
Remember.
want to
But they
shoot all
still
the nukes."
gave it to her.
All
Well,
right,
yeah.
whatever. Snyder's
She
like,
just has to
"Whatever."
press a button. She doesn't have to see to do
I
that.
know.
Snyder's
That was
like,
a very
"Whatever."
elaborate looking trigger, too. It was like a scepter.
Well,
Yeah.
come on, wouldn't you want your nuke button to look cool?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want
it is
one
like a JRPG.
big red button.
Just one, and you just carry it with you like it's like the easy buttons from Staples. It's
Like the deal or no deal button. That's what I want.
I would like it if it was even like that. Like you shoot a nuke. That was, easy. I just killed millions of people. That was easy.
and then you just have the evilest laugh.
Indeed.
Much eviler
But
than that.
it is kind of interesting to see like Lelouch totally puts on like the evil face again. Like, no, you are like the image of the aristocrat that I have rejected. You know, totally like being evil to Nunnally. But it does sort of turn out like, because at first I know you were like what the hell, Nunnally? Why are you with them?
Yeah.
But Schneisel lies to her saying like, oh no, we evacuated the people of Pendragon before we shot the nuke, so nobody died. Ha 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 ha.
And then even Cordelius, who apparently is also immortal and can never die, so who should have been dead like 3 times by this point.
Well, I mean, it's fine that she survived season 1 because Lelouch didn't kill her.
I
but
know.
she should have maybe died when Schneisel shot her. I can agree
lot.
with that.
A lot.
I know, but I like the idea that she's there like after the end of the show to sort of be part of the rebuilding process.
Isn't it about that time in the battle when Cornelia's little helper, her bodyguard, isn't that where he sacrifices himself?
No, that was
No,
that
that was a long time ago.
That was when the flight was shot in Tokyo.
Oh, right.
But he shows
died,
up.
and he died, and then it turns out he's alive because nobody ever dies in this show.
They really don't.
Yeah.
Like, I think even you were saying, like, well, apparently Nunnally is dead. Is Nunnally really dead? And then Tristan was like, yeah, no. If you're asking that question, that means she's
But,
not
like,
dead.
What's
there were
that?
people
Mal
who
got
I
about 2 pounds collectively of hot lead shot through his body. Yeah, he's fine.
See, but like that's the thing though, is like only like you can count out of all the people who actually die. It's generally just like the main villains, Rollo, and then Yuffie. Like
Rollo Yuffie Shirley dies.
Shirley
you know.
dies,
And then Lelouch at the end,
and then
obviously.
Lelouch at the end. But Schneisel doesn't even die.
Well, no, but there's a reason for that.
I know there's a reason for that. And Detard,
You just
Detard dies though.
Detard does die. He was just a detard, though.
He
And
was a
everyone else just pulls the ejector button on their nightmares right before they explode.
But I do like how, like, after that, like, Lelouch is freaking out, like, well, Schneisel, that was a well-played move. You know, you got, like, my heart or whatever. He's, like, freaking out because, obviously, Nunnally, I can't go up against Nunnally. Then Suzaku's like, yeah, no, like, for the sake of the Zero Requiem, we can't back down now. You know, remember your promise to me, sort of thing. Like, he's being all, you know, I'm his sword, you know, you're his shield, C2, blah, 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 all that sort of
And
stuff.
meanwhile, outside, you have the drama of the Black Knights fighting against an army of essentially brain-dead drones at that point. and Shin-Kei trying his best to hold back the blood in his mouth, and
Despite the fact that he's immortal. So
he has a
It
code.
really kind of is. I do love though the beginning of that fight where it's like they're not even fighting, but Schneisel and Lelouch are just like moving their stuff
Hey,
back
guys,
and forth.
why aren't we shooting at each other yet? Because we're fighting.
But it's chess metaphors, guys.
It was all
They're fighting.
chess.
The battle's just invisible. That sounds boring.
I'm chess,
Shut up.
your chess, we're all chess, really.
Chess for everybody.
The Gurren is your queen, Suzaku's mine.
Suzaku's my queen.
Yeah.
But that the battle to start playing out, and the Black Knights are doing like very well to start with, kind of pushing through, and then it's just like, all right, well, you did good to make me activate this plan, volcano explosion, because of course he blows up everything. Like
He blows
Yeah,
up.
he uses
bombs in a volcano.
he uses nature as his weapon like all the time in the show. I'm surprised they didn't see that coming.
Yeah, the
really.
landslide,
see
the
that.
collapsing streets. It really was a typical Lelouch play.
It really was. And I do like how there was a point there where Tamaki was fighting against Suzaku, and he got beaten, but he kept like shooting even after he got like cut in half, and he actually like delayed Suzaku from getting to stopping them from going inside Lelouch's ship, to save the hostages and stuff. It's like Tamaki actually did something
The
for
one
once.
time Tamaki's useful, and it's antagonizing Lelouch.
Well, of course. I mean, everyone's against Lelouch at this point. They're working with Schneisel. They're like, we don't agree with Schneisel like blowing people up, but we want to defeat Lelouch more. So, yeah. So the whole battle's going on. It's nice to see like C2 and what's her name, Colin, get into a fight, and Colin wins that pretty easily because no
Colin's
duh.
the best.
C2's never driven a nightmare outside of going and picking up
That's
Lelouch
not-
in the...
That's not true. She co-piloted the one in the first season that she drove. She drove it with Lelouch.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, she's only really gone out and helped him out in that one, and kind of... She drives it up for him, and then he takes over.
I guess, but she did fight in that at the end of season 1 against Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Remember, they got into a
In
fight.
that massive Jeremiah ship.
Yep. Jeremiah's crazy ship.
Which is back here this time.
It's true. He's using
also
that.
he's also using that.
Of course he does. Well, it's apparently only like he and like certain people can use it because V2 uses it at one point.
Yeah, and at one point it blows up, and he's just like, nope. He flies through the air, lands on another nightmare. He's just like, I'm gonna keep fighting.
Yeah. Well, that's in the last episode when he's fighting Anya. I love that line because he's like, she's like, I've memorized, your or in her little data book, like I've cataloged your destruction. He's like, memorize this. And he jumps out of his mech. Memorize the name of Jeremiah Gutwell because that's the name of the memorable man who has defeated you.
I'll never get over how much I love Jeremiah in the last few episodes.
He's so hammy. I love
He
And
it.
he realizes that she's under the influence of Geass, and it fixes her,
Yeah.
gives her back her memory.
But
That's what my eye can do.
yeah, it's nice to see, Nina kind of does something important. Working with Lloyd and Cecile, they make this anti-Flea weapon that, Suzaku and Lelouch use to stop the Flea to get inside the Damocles, and they start, blowing stuff
I
up.
wish I had more Floyd because I love Floyd so much. You need to be in the show more by the end.
Yeah, in R2, he definitely has less of a role because, I mean, Suzaku is his boss in R2, not the other way
Yeah.
around.
They
that
just
makes
keep making jokes about how he's sort of, kind of, not really engaged.
Yeah.
Well, Millie breaks that off, actually,
I know.
at a certain point. She's like, no, I'm sick of this.
Yeah, all right, that's fine, whatever.
And then there was also Lloyd's rival.
Oh, yeah, Rakshata.
Rakshata
Apparently there was a
great.
thing between them at some point, but it's never really expanded.
they
There
never
were
really
more
talked about it.
scenes of Rakshata lying down than there were of her standing up.
That's true.
Yes.
That was kind of her thing. Just
She
like
likes to
do that
latch.
with her little pipe thing, like in her hand. But I did love how Schneissel's like, yeah, well, I'm just gonna blow you up, along with Damocles, Lelouch. But Lelouch is like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna let you do that because I totally geassed all of your followers, and now I'm gonna trick you with this video screen thing that I used against Mao.
Yeah,
And
Because
doing it
I
again.
predicted everything you'd say down to the second.
Yeah, and I will admit, because I think the Mao one is a little bit more believable because at one point he interrupts Mao mid-sentence because he couldn't predict how long Mao was going to talk, whereas with this one, he somehow knows exactly how long Schneisel is going to talk before he starts talking. But as far as in terms of the answers he gives, they're actually relatively general. Because he's usually the one like asks Schneisel a question, and he's like, okay, Schneisel can respond in this sort of way, so I'm going to say this back to him. He's his brother, he knows him well enough that I think it works.
Yeah.
And I do love how he's like, Emperor Charles sought the past, you seek the present, but I seek the future. Talking about kind of like their three different plans. I think that's an interesting concept. And it is cool how he totally pones Detard, where Detard's like gets shot by Schneid's, and I was like, at least use your Geass on me. He's like, sorry, Detard, but you're just not worth wasting my Geass on. It's like, ah. Even in death, Detard has like no redemption, no hope.
Yeah. Oh well, nobody cares.
And then it's like, no, not only has the key, goes to deal with that, and then she's like, yeah, I won't shut my eyes to thing any longer. Open my eyes. Now you're gonna use your Geass on me, Lelouch.
Yes.
Cut the credits.
Just yes. Yeah.
Although
You only have to do it once. I mean,
I
I understand your reasoning for not doing it, but
I do wonder if that was totally necessary, because he did say in the next episode, like, I thought about using my Geass on Nunnally before to cure her blindness, but I didn't want to do it because using absolute submission on her was bad.
how would that work?
But I mean, I
It's
guess,
supposed to be psychosomatic. They thought it was psychosomatic, so she
True,
would just
but-
like will it be back.
But
Eye
I-
contact.
right,
Oh,
eye
no, that
contact.
would work.
But if he just would it just be like opening up her eyelids to like her blind eyes, and as long as he stared into them, the Geass would still work?
Oh.
I don't exactly
You'd
know
have
how
to,
that
like-
works.
Well, it didn't work through television screens.
Well,
so-
no, but that's like different. The human being isn't even there in that
Yeah.
case. Although apparently, even if you wear like sunglasses, that's
Yeah.
enough to stop it. But and that episode also ends with like the Gino breaking the Blaze Luminous system, and we're getting the cliffhanger for the rematch between Lelouch and Colin, or not Lelouch and Colin, Suzaku and Colin. The Lancelot and the
The
Gurren,
fight I wanted to see the most.
and you got to see it.
And that was an intense fight.
It was
They
an
were hacking
intense fight. I
they were
really just
hacking
wish it
limbs off of
lasted
each other.
3 to 5 minutes longer.
Well, this isn't Gurren Lagann. The mech fights are not the
Everything
major.
should
Rock
be
'em, sock 'em,
Gurren
robot
Lagann,
battles.
Alex.
The mech fights are
Everything.
not the main part of the show.
Every mech show should
All
be
the
Gurren Lagann.
nightmares, most of the nightmares, the general assembly line nightmares, which now can all fly, they've all got their guns, but when the Gurren and the Lancelot are going against each other, they're pulling off Power Rangers moves, they're whipping out swords and the microwave hand.
Well,
It was a lot of fun.
I liked it because they started doing more of their energy weapon attacks, more range stuff, and it's they started running out of power, so they got in close combat, punching and kicking each other, and it was really well animated too. I love that final fight, and in the end, Colin quote unquote wins. Pierces
wins.
his mech, he blows up. Gino catches her. It's like, you won, Colin. And then I do love it because obviously it's the last episode, and they do this kind of cool thing where they're doing this montage of Lelouch is talking with Nunnally about their beliefs and their philosophy, and then cuts to all these different people throughout the battle talking about the reasons why they're doing all this stuff. It's just this big montage, this cool little piece of music. But then Nunnally says, the Damocles is gonna become a symbol for their hatred, and that's when Lelouch is like, oh, so you had the same idea as me, well then I'm just going full out then. Give the Damocles key to me now, And I love how he talks so nice to her while she's still under the Geass induced haze, and then he takes the key, and she wakes up again and looks at him, and he just acts totally prickish and walks off, not even talking to her.
Says anything. She falls over. Stairs, my one weakness.
It's true, and it is just sad because she's like, you've become despicable, Lelouch, cowardly. How could you be so cruel? She calls him a demon, and the name of the first episode is the day a demon was born. So I think that's kind of a nice coming full circle thing there.
Just wait till a few more episodes, not only just wait a little bit.
Well, this is the last episode.
I know.
Just wait
a few minutes.
5 minutes of the episode.
And another one of my favorite moments in the show, because I made this one list when I was younger of my five favorite most epic moments in Code Geass, and 4 of them are from the last 4 episodes of R2 because it's just all the epicness is there. When he says, obey me subjects, obey me world, when he proclaims that message to the whole world,
He's
the world
standing
belongs
on a map
to me.
of the world.
Yeah, it's so cool. The music is blasting.
It's that
there.
big Britannian dun 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 dun.
Yeah, so cool. So it's how many anime can you name where the protagonist goes to conquer the world and actually succeeds at it? Not very many. So yeah, then we fast forward another month, and they're doing this parade thing. Everyone's going up to be executed. It's so obviously a propaganda news piece. But then this mysterious guy in a mask shows up, and it's Zero. And then Colin immediately kind of figures out what's going on. And as soon as he flashes to, Suzaku has the sword pointed at him. He smiles, and it flashes to them talking in that church, and he's like, Suzaki, you have to kill me. That is the Zero Requiem. Where I'm going to put all of the world's hatred on my shoulders. And then die for the sake of the world. And there's this music piece called Matter Sky that picks up there during that whole montage bit.
And it's just the same jazzy. It's got that jazzy feel that most of Code Geass does, but at this point, it feels very appropriate.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it jazzy. It was more like orchestral, really.
I know. I want to say that most of Code Geass's music was very upbeat.
Yes,
even
energetic,
though sometimes
certainly.
it didn't make sense unless they were doing the real Britannian imperial music.
Yeah, but him, he stabs Lelouch, obviously, says, you're the punishment for what you've done shall be this. You're going to become Zero. Give up your life as Suzaku Kurugi for the sake of the world. He falls down the thing, trailing a bunch of blood with him, and Nunnally touches his hand and sort of figures out what's going on. I love you, big brother. Yes, I destroy the world and make it anew.
And Lelouch dies, or does he?
Right. Well, we'll talk about that. But part of the reason why I love that ending so much is because it takes these arc words, the words he's been saying from the very beginning of the show, and makes them come back and make it all make sense. I destroy the world and make it anew. The only ones who should kill are those prepared to be killed. When he says that, everything came full circle for me. It just all connects so well. And they show kind of her crying, as everyone's chanting Zero, Zero, kind of like how everyone chanted Zero's name when Yuffie died back in season 1. There's kind of a nice parallel there. And we see this montage of, the world being more peaceful afterwards, Ogi and Valletta got married, Nunnally's the Empress now, and things seem to be going good. They destroyed Damocles.
Jeremiah works on an orange farm.
He does, which somebody had joked about that in the first season, I think, accusing him, oh, you should go work on an orange farm. He's like, all right, I will. Screw you guys. And then ending with the little cliffhanger thing with, C2 on the carriage being I said that the power of the king would curse you to a life of solitude. Well, I think that's not quite right, Lelouch? And then cut to credits. And
Now,
so ends the show.
The first time I saw that scene, what immediately jumped to mind was, okay, he's in the same kind of astral place that Marianne was. But I did a little bit of digging after that, and I found out that in the original release, this never got dubbed. Back in the original release of Code Geass, there's a tiny little itty-bitty scene right after she says, right, Lelouch, where it shows the carriage driver, and he's wearing a hat that's covering his eyes, but you just see his face, and he just smiles. So
I could actually talk about that because I've researched that, because there's a whole debate online of did Lelouch die or didn't he die.
Yeah.
That scene was something someone uploaded to YouTube. That's fake. That's something
Really?
that a fan made that shot of Lelouch smirking there. It's not part of the actual
I
Japanese
thought that was something that
broadcast.
actually got cut. Okay.
Nope. And it was something else. With the whole thing of is he talking to Lelouch in C's world, it's weird because she had the connection to Marianne, was talking to Marianne because they were connected by Marianne's Geass, and that was really what made that happen. But then at the same time, the Emperor said at one point in the first scene, I was talking with Clovis just now, when he was in that heavenly realm, in the C's world, sort of Akasha place. So it's theoretically possible that C2 can talk to Lelouch in the afterlife. It's also totally possible she's just saying it out loud to herself, talking to him in heaven, looking up at the sky,
Yeah, hey,
there's a
look
lot
at
of
the world now.
There's a lot of different explanations for it. The big question to that comes down to whether or not Lelouch took Charles's code when he defeated him.
That's the real question, because Charles dies. For all intents and purposes, he's killed by God. And so where does his code go if not into Lelouch?
Well, what's interesting about that, though, is he says we're being consumed by C's world. So it's really C's world is consuming him. Lelouch didn't kill him, really. He didn't steal his code from him. And it's worth mentioning that C2 had said nobody that I've trained with Geass, has ever gotten to that point, where they could steal someone's code. And Lelouch gets the second eye. You might think, oh, now he can do it.
Yeah.
But Mao had 2 Geass eyes. He couldn't control his power. He was at that point, and he apparently couldn't do it. Because he didn't steal C2's code. So I don't know. I don't feel like Lelouch had progressed to the point where he could steal anyone's code. We don't really know the specifics of how that works. So personally, I don't think he's dead. And there was also a interview with the writer where they talked about the fact that, where was it? He's talking about the ending, which is why I think of both R and Lelouch's decisions as happy endings. I believe that there will be better things in the tomorrow awaiting Nunnally, Colin, and the rest who have been left behind. And surely Lelouch, who was able to make this into a reality, can only be happy about this. So basically in this interview, the writer Okuchi was talking about how, like here he says, while it's undeniable that Lelouch's story has ended with a full stop, the other characters' stories are still ongoing. It's not like the world of Code Geass itself has just come to an end either. So, like, the writer confirmed it, Lelouch is dead. And I think, personally, that makes the ending more powerful because it is like, Lelouch was gonna sacrifice himself, for the sake of the world, only those should kill those prepared to be killed. Like, it makes that more meaningful versus if this was just some giant Batman gambit. It's like, haha, I'm alive all along.
Okay.
Actually, that would be a Zanato's gambit, but yes.
Okay, Zanato's gambit.
Sorry, they're a different thing. Actually, it's not even really that. It's more just like a gambit. Batman's gambit requires you to be playing somebody you know them so well that you know how they're going to behave in a certain situation, so you just plan for that accordingly. He does that to Suzaku all the time because he just does that knowing that Suzaku will do the right thing.
Right.
And he's like, so yeah, I played into that. Suck it.
Right. So I guess what are everyone's thoughts on the ending? Because personally, for me, I consider this to be one of the best endings in any anime I've ever seen. Like, it makes everything come together so well, and it was weird because I had actually, before I'd seen Code Geass the show, I saw this video of top best anime moments or something, and the Zero's Requiem was on that list. So I actually knew about the ending to the show before I actually watched the show itself. So it's I knew that the ending was coming, but because I saw that ending and I knew how epic it was what got me to watch the show in the first place. So it's kind of a weird thing. And seeing the ending after seeing the whole show makes it a lot more meaningful because just watching it on its own, it doesn't really make as much sense. But personally, this is what makes Code Geass one of my all-time favorite shows. If this ending wasn't as good as it was, it definitely wouldn't be as high up for me. Andrew, what would you say about the ending?
All right, so the ending was really, really solid. We did talk about that, how the show kind of ends 3 times, and the first time I can kind of give it away with, but the second ending where he kills the Emperor felt very permanent to me, and then the fact that it kept going, I was like, oh, okay, there's still 4 episodes left of this. Why is this still going on? Whatever. And then I do feel like it was necessary because I do like the way that it ended, if the transition was a little weird. With Lelouch sacrificing himself. Even though I wasn't entirely sure how Lelouch thought his plan would work. Because, I get that he puts all the hatred and the evil of the world on his shoulders and then he dies. But I'm like, that doesn't make all the hatred go away.
Well,
if anything, it would just create this vacuum of power that, who's gonna...
Well,
all these nations are like, well, now we don't have a government structure. Let's rebel and become our own nation.
Yeah, and then you got the United Nations that sort of come back together.
You do kind of have the United Nations come back together, but when they just splinter apart, he's putting a lot of faith that this is going to solve all the problems instead of create even more problems.
I think part of his plan was that he first united everyone in the first place to make sure before he was gone. But he
united them under a way that would make them hate him and make them angry and make them want to fight him.
Well, and that was always the point to fight them.
It's easier to unite against a common enemy than for the
But
common
what happens
good.
if that enemy goes away? Did they go back to fighting each other now?
But the
there's
thing
this
is,
vacuum of power.
He left things in place for even after he was gone for that to keep happening. For one, he was only truly emperor of the world for a month. So all those leaders of the United Federations of Nations are still around and can certainly come back into power. Nunnally becomes the leader of Britannia afterwards. When he commanded Schneisel, he said, "You will serve Zero." And Suzaku is playing as Zero, so Schneisel serves him. Zero is there to help make all this happen.
But what is preventing every nation, every person who identifies themselves like the Japanese did as their own thing, going well, now that there's no emperor, why do we to keep us in line? Why are we still in line? Why not we revolt? Why don't we become our own country? He was making this huge gamble that the world was just going to become a peaceful place once he died and all that got resolved, instead of just all going to crap and just making this huge influx of war where they all just try to revolt.
I see what you mean, because we never really see what the other districts are like. We don't really know how they're dealing with Britannian rule. We just know that they're kind of under the iron fist as well.
I mean, he basically just controls the everything that was the Chinese Federation, that was the United Federation, that was the European Alliance or whatever it was. He just basically takes them over, and why wouldn't they be just as bitter as the Japanese were? Like, throughout the entire show, like, what prevented them from being like, no, now that Lelouch is dead, we're all going to become best friends and high-five and eat chicken wings together instead of like, well, hey, let's not be under Britannia's rule again. Let's war and revolt.
I'm sure that, Nunnally gave up, like, some of, like, because I think, Lelouch, when he became emperor, he let, Japan go, like, let it be its own thing. I'm sure he let a lot of, like, the colonies, as it were, that weren't really a part of Britannia as a whole, like, become their own independent things. Everything goes back to the way it was kind of before he took over. And I think part of the whole point of it, like, he killed so many people. Like, I feel like at that point, everyone was all their hatred was focused on him. They're like, okay, we're like sick of war for right now.
But that's not how the world works, and that's not how hatred works.
Right, but the thing is, you don't know if it's going to work or not. But is it better to have done nothing at all and let the world continue on and just its messed up way, or try to change it, or at least try something?
I get that, and I do think that he did go about it in the right way, and I do think the ending does a good job of doing that. But I'm just saying, like, this could have easily been like the biggest screw up of his entire grand master plan, because this could have backfired tremendously, and it could have just become this huge, just engulfed the world into this huge war.
Right, but we saw like all the really evil people in the show, like he took care of them. He took care of the emperor. He took care of Schneisel.
More evil people in the world.
But like we aren't shown that directly in the show, so it's hard to say that for sure. Like, we knew, like, the people that were part of the UFN, they were all ready to be the UFN, so that's, like, a good portion of the world. Britannia is still under control. EU we know the least about, so that's probably the most wild card. What I personally think is, like, I think what Lelouch has done has bought the world, like, at least a generation's worth of, like, peace.
No, that's not how humanity works.
I don't know.
You are such a pessimist.
I'm sorry. It's the way...
No, that's true.
No, it
know,
is.
But,
the whole show has been a war. Like,
we got a generation of peace, and then another guy shows up, and war happens.
Well, right, because basically what I think is, like, everybody who, like, lived through what Lelouch did, like, they're gonna be like, okay, we saw how that went, let's not do that again. But like, when they're kids who knew nothing,
not true.
If you think about it, his entire purpose was to make a world that was better for Nunnally, and I guess Nunnally will be dead by then.
But like, that's not how like humanity works. Like, look at history. Like, okay, so remember all those people who lived through World War I? You want to go do World War II again? Yes, let's do World War II.
True, but we can't really compare it to real world history because we never had somebody like take over the world and have
the entire world has never been under one fist.
Yeah, we haven't had like one person embody like all of
people
that.
Tried, but no.
Exactly. And it's worth noting that like, it wasn't just for Nunnally's sake. That was part of the point, I think, of R2 is that he moved beyond just Nunnally. Like, for the sake of everybody who has died, we have to do this.
Yeah.
Even if she gets in my way, sort of thing. So one other thing to talk about real quick before we wrap it up, I think, is talk about the whole battle between, like, the philosophy battle with Lelouch and Suzaku that we talked about with the first season. Going with that, how it is at the end of R2, what are sort of our thoughts? Because for me, like, I like Lelouch more in Season 1, and I still like him more in R2. I think his plan comes together.
Well, like I said, I thought we kind of talked about this. Like I said, that the show clearly says that this show seems to be like, no, Lelouch's side is right. Because they kind of drop it when Suzaku switches to his side. That's like the philosophical version of seceding and switching. Like, when you switch sides philosophically, that's you surrendering your point of view and switching to his point of view, thus letting Lelouch win the argument.
I believe that you're right, but at the same time, it comes off to me less that like Suzaku lost to Lelouch and like the battle of philosophy is more that just Suzaku as a character changed to the point that he changed his philosophy.
That's the show telling you the philosophical argument is over. And one side is
loved Suzaku's whole morality idea of if I prove myself to the Britannians, if I become the Knight of One, then I can do this. I can change this from the inside. But the whole problem was that he was turning a blind eye to the fact that the people in charge of the system that he was working in were fundamentally corrupt, and they were broken, and they were trying to change the world into their image. So it really didn't matter, even if he became the Knight of One, if Charles had succeeded in his plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Trenton? Lelouch versus Suzaku.
Not really. I mean, I've always favored kind of more of. I really like both of their ways of trying to change things. One from the inside, one from just direct action and just not waiting for something else to happen. I mean, I've always kind of been on Lelouch's side for that because he didn't wait around. He wanted to take action, and in the end, that's how it ended up. Suzaku ended up having to drop his whole philosophy on it and going with Lelouch because it just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, again, I agree that Lelouch's philosophy kind of won over in the end.
And because Suzaku never tried to be the man in charge, he tried to work for the man in charge so he could get what he wanted.
Right.
But because becoming the man in charge, he would have to done it the way Lelouch wanted to do it, which was kill and take over.
Exactly, and it didn't end well for anyone who tried to do that.
It really didn't. So overall thoughts about the show, I suppose. For myself, like Code Geass is in my top 10 favorite anime. I love the show to death. I do think R2 is superior to the first season, even though it does like make some more leaps in logic than the first season did. It's just so much more epic and so much more grand, and it has all my favorite moments from the show are in R2. I just love it to pieces. Andrew, what would you say?
R2 is a lot better over R1. Vast improvement. It did finally get to that level of like screwing each other over and like strategy that I really, really liked. So yeah, R2 really good. Though I'm not as in love with it as everybody else says it is, because everyone's like, this is one of the greatest shows ever. I'm like, I mean, it's not that great. I mean, it's great, but it's not like,
The best thing ever. All right, fair enough. Trenton, what would you say?
It's brilliant. I just I love R2. I think personally R1 is slightly better than R2 just because of some certain plot elements that weren't really fully explained, and but I just also love how amped up R2 got, like doubling everything from the action to the strategy to just it just gets so grandiose. I love it.
All right, and Sam. I was about to call you Corey again. Or something like that. Sorry.
As someone who doesn't really watch mecha all that much, I was still a huge fan of this. I loved watching how the nightmares themselves evolved and how they became just another tool. I liked how the tools kept amping themselves up until the Flayas came into play, because then it all just became a push of a button and you lose the war. But aside from that, I still loved watching Lelouch work. I love seeing this guy who really is a mastermind, and he lets you into his brain so you understand what he's thinking, and you can try and figure out what his plots are as he's playing them out before he explains everything to you. And overall, I think R2 is a really good way to wrap up this battle of philosophy, because it shows that no matter what you do, it's going to end for all the players. If you try and kill people and use them as pawns in your game, it is going to eventually require the sacrifice of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I like that. It's like Lelouch wasn't afraid to deal with the consequences of his actions at the end of the day, which is what I think makes his philosophy so much more strong because of that. So we're going to wrap up the podcast now. Thank you guys for being on the podcast today with me, especially you, Sam. I hope you enjoyed the podcast today.
Yeah, it was great being with you guys.
Thank you. And we're going to do a podcast probably a week or two from now. We'll talk about what we're going to do after the podcast, I suppose. So for those of you who enjoyed this, you can email us at techheads@avwproductions.com. You can follow us on Twitter at techheadsou, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, give us some good ratings and reviews, all that good stuff. And thank you for listening. We will see you next time.
This product is copyright AVW Productions 2000.